9. Ignition sequence.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
1, 0, and liftoff.
Mission complete, Houston. After serving the world for over 30 years, the space shuttle earned its place in history and has come to a final stop.
Welcome, everyone, to the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. On behalf of our 55,000 employees, including those here at the Visitor Complex of Delaware North worldwide, I would like to welcome you today to the induction ceremony celebrating the 11th class of shuttle astronauts into the U.S. Hall of Fame. It is a privilege to host this induction ceremony and to be part of a momentous occasion where so many astronaut heroes gather to recognize and welcome a chosen few into the ranks of this elite group of space explorers. This has been an emotional and exciting year for us. We watched the last shuttle launches, last 2 or 3 here. We watched the 30-year program come to an end. We shed a few tears as Discovery, the first of our shuttles, yes, will always feel like they belong here, no matter where their homes are, made her sunrise departure on April 7th aboard a Boeing 747, circling the rocket garden in its final farewell. Soon, Endeavour will follow her. But with those difficult goodbyes comes an even bigger welcome home as we prepare, just across the visitor complex right over here, to give Atlantis the most incredible home, other than space, that an orbiter has ever known. Work is well underway, and we are on track for our July 2013 opening date for Atlanta's state-of-the-art $100 million, 65,000 square foot attraction. We look forward to telling the story of the space shuttle, more importantly, the thousands that worked on her and those that flew her. As if that were not exciting enough, even more changes are underway here at the visitor complex to completely change our guest experience for all of you. As part of our 10-year master plan, we're building a brand new entrance designed to build excitement and anticipation of what you'll experience. Opening this fall, the entrance will bring guests in through the rocket garden and will be guided along a vapor trail on a clear and purposeful path through the visitor complex and onto the Atlantis exhibit when it opens next year. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge a few people that will be with us today. Among those, Kennedy Space Center Director Robert Cabana, who will join us shortly with Hall of Fame astronauts, as well as astronauts Rhea Sadin, Senior Florida State Senator Bill Nelson, who are in the audience today. And I would also like to, and more importantly, recognize the important and significant contribution to today's ceremony by the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, led by their Board of Directors Chairman Charlie Duke, their Vice Chairman Dan Brandenstein, and Executive Director Lynn LeBlanc. Thank you. And now I would like to welcome to the stage today's Master of Ceremonies. He is CNN's Miami correspondent, responsible for CNN's news coverage in Florida and the Caribbean. Since joining CNN in 1981, he has covered every major hurricane to hit Florida and the Gulf Coast. He is also CNN's principal correspondent for coverage of the U.S. space program, having covered events such as John Glenn's 1998 return to space, the Mars Pathfinder mission, the 2005 return to flight mission, and numerous other shuttle launches. He has won 2 Emmy Awards and has been honored numerous times for his work. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcome to the stage, John Zarella.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wow, it's a great crowd. There's always a great crowd here. I've had the opportunity to be here to MC this event on numerous occasions, and it is terrific. And thanks, Bill, for the intro. You didn't tell anybody about my new job, did you? You didn't tell them? No. See, what's going to happen is once they're finished, a lot of you who are going to come back here and get to go through and the new exhibit, well, the first person you're going to see is going to be me. That's when I leave CNN, my new job, I'm going to be the greeter. outside the space shuttle, and I'll take you in and, you know, show you a little bit of this and that, whatever I know, and then I'll let the real experts take over and give you the real story. So look for me when you come back. That's going to be my next job. And I am honored again to be the Master of Ceremonies here. I think I've been here at least 10 times to do one of these events. It's spectacular. Just a few months ago, I was here to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Americans in Orbit, when we honored the Mercury astronauts. And I'll tell you what, this place feels like home to me after all of these years, and I certainly have some tremendous memories. Before Discovery's last flight into space, I had a wonderful opportunity to fly with the commander, Steve Lindsay, in the STA, the shuttle training aircraft, and doing the touch and goes out at the runways. They practiced what it's like to come back to Earth. And I didn't get sick. It was good. I didn't get sick. And Bob Cabana, who of course is the center director here for a documentary that we were doing on the shuttle program, Bob was gracious enough to take me inside of the shuttle Discovery, and he actually let me sit in the commander's seat too, which was kind of nice of him. So another special treat that I've had. So a lot of tremendous memories here. Thanks to the glorious 30-year history of the Space Shuttle program. And now it is my privilege to introduce to you the attending members of the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. He piloted Gemini 7, commanded Gemini 12, orbited the moon on Apollo 8, and commanded the successful failure that was Apollo 13. Aboard Apollo 8, he, along with crewmates Frank Borman and Bill Anders, captivated a television audience of millions on Christmas Eve by beaming back pictures of the rugged lunar surface while reading from the book of Genesis. His near miss aboard Apollo 13 was the subject of a blockbuster movie starring Tom Hanks. He now serves as Astronaut Scholarship Foundation Chairman Emeritus Jim Lovell. He piloted Gemini 6 and commanded Gemini 9 and Apollo 10, for which he was cited in the Guinness Book of World Records for highest speed ever attained by man. During the Apollo 10 re-entry, his spacecraft attained 24,791 statute miles per hour. He logged his fourth space flight as Apollo commander of the Apollo-Soyuz test project, culminating in the historic first meeting in space between American astronauts and Soviet cosmonauts. He served as a defense advisor to Ronald Reagan during the presidential campaign and has since served on numerous NASA advisory boards. Tom Stafford. Selected as an astronaut by NASA way back in 1963, he made his first space flight as pilot on the 3-day Gemini 11 mission, during which he left the spacecraft for a 44-minute spacewalk. In November 1969, he circled 60 miles above the moon while his Apollo 12 crewmates walked on its surface. He retired from NASA in 1972 to become executive vice president of those New Orleans Saints professional football team, Dick Gordon. He served as lunar module pilot aboard the first manned mission of the Apollo program, the 11-day Apollo 7 mission. He later served as chief of the Skylab branch of the Flight Crew Directorate, overseeing components of the United States' first space station. Today, he shares his thoughts on spaceflight through periodic columns, lectures, and his book, The All-American Boys. Walt Cunningham. He served as lunar module pilot for Apollo 9 and as backup commander of the first Skylab mission. He developed the hardware and procedures used by the first crew to perform critical in-flight repairs. He is the founder and past president of the Association of Space Explorers, co-founder of the B612 Foundation, a group that aims to defend Earth from asteroid impacts. In 2010, he served as co-chair of the NASA Advisory Council Ad Hoc Task Force on Planetary Defense. Rusty Schweikert. He was selected by NASA for its 5th class of astronauts in April 1966. In 1970, he was a member of the Apollo 13 crew that struggled to return to Earth after an oxygen tank explosion aborted the mission as it approached the moon. He served as backup lunar module pilot for Apollo 8 and 11 and backup commander for Apollo 16. He later commanded the Space Shuttle Enterprise approach and landing test flights in 1977. Fred Hayes. He was the 6th person to step foot on the moon during Apollo 14, NASA's 3rd moon landing. He and the late Alan Shepard explored the moon's hilly Frau Mora region in 1971 on the first mission devoted to lunar science. They established the record for the longest on-foot traverse, exceeding 41 kilometers. He retired from NASA and founded the Institute for Noetic Sciences in an effort to integrate scientific disciplines in the study of human consciousness. He was a 2005 nominee for the Nobel Peace Prize, Edgar Mitchell. He became the 10th person to walk on the moon aboard Apollo 16 in 1972. During 3 outside excursions over 3 days, Duke and fellow astronaut John Young drove a lunar rover 16 miles and collected 213 pounds of lunar rock and soil, and also claimed the record for the longest lunar spacewalk. Today, he's president of Charlie Duke Enterprises and is an active speaker. Charlie Duke. He worked for 59 days in orbit as a member of the 2nd Skylab space station crew in 1973, spending 11 hours on 2 spacewalks outside of Skylab. In 1982, he commanded the 3rd orbital test flight of Space Shuttle Columbia, the only mission to land at White Sands, New Mexico. He retired from NASA and the Marine Corps as a colonel in 1984. Jack Lausma. He also lived in space for 59 days in 1973 aboard the Skylab space station, during which he conducted 3 spacewalks to exchange film and direct a sun shield to cool the orbiting laboratory. 10 years later, he returned to space aboard Columbia on the first flight of the Space Lab laboratory. Currently is an adjunct professor at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, Owen Garriott. Selected as one of the first science astronauts by NASA in June 1965, he was the science pilot of Skylab 4. While aboard this orbital space station for a record 84 days, he was the crewman primarily responsible for the 338 hours of Apollo telescope mount operations, making extensive operations of the sun. Ed Gibson. He was the pilot of the first human spaceflight mission managed jointly by 2 nations, the United States and Russia, the Apollo-Soyuz test project. He then commanded 3 space shuttle flights, including the first mission labeled as operational, STS-5. He is retired from NASA's Dryden Flight Research Center as Associate Center Director for Programs. Vance Brand. He piloted the maiden flight of the Space Shuttle program on the orbiter Columbia in 1981. He then commanded 3 additional shuttle missions, including the first mission to capture, repair, and release a satellite. In the early 1990s, he served as director of NASA's Kennedy Space Center and later served as president of Thiokol Aerospace Group in Utah. Bob Crippen. He was the commander of one of the 2 crews that flew the initial Space Shuttle Enterprise approach and landing test flights. In 1981, he commanded the 2nd orbital test flight of the Space Shuttle Columbia, becoming the first and only pilot to manually fly an aerospace vehicle from Mach 25 to landing. He was commander of the Space Shuttle Discovery on Flight 51I. Joe Engle. He piloted the 4th and final test flight of Space Shuttle Columbia before commanding Discovery on its maiden voyage in 1984. His last assignment was on Challenger, STS-61A, the first Space Lab science mission planned and controlled by a foreign customer and the first to fly 8 crew members. He later served as president for Raytheon Aerospace Engineering. Hank Hartsfield. He flew to space twice on missions STS-5 and STS-51A. His rookie flight, the shuttle's first operational mission, deployed 2 satellites. His second mission featured the world's first space salvage. Using a jet backpack, he and his crewmate Dale Gardner captured 2 malfunctioning satellites. After leaving NASA in 1985, he served as Chief Executive Officer of Space Industries International and later was chairman of Veridian Corporation until he retired in 2004. Joe Allen. A 3-flight veteran, he and fellow crewmate Bob Crippen were the first to fly an orbiter in close proximity to a free-flying satellite on STS-7. He went on to command the return-to-flight mission after Challenger was lost. Rick Houck. He has flown 4 shuttle missions, piloting the first night launch and commanding the others, including the maiden flight of Endeavour. He spent 261 hours in space during STS-32. He also served as chief of NASA's astronaut office for 5 years and is currently executive vice president and chief operating officer of United Space Alliance. Dan Brandenstein. He flew 3 space shuttle missions, 1 as pilot and 2 as commander, and served as a staff member of the Presidential Commission that investigated the Challenger accident in 1986 and led to the return-to-flight team responsible for implementing safety modifications to the shuttle fleet. He returned to space in 1989 as commander of Columbia, STS-28. He currently serves as the vice president and general manager of Boeing's Space Exploration Division, Brewster Shaw Jr. He commanded 4 of his 5 space shuttle missions, including the first docking of a shuttle with the Russian space station Mir. As pilot of STS-41B, performed the first shuttle landing at KSC's landing facility. Serves as chief of the astronaut office until September 1994, retired from NASA soon thereafter. He currently spends his time giving motivational speeches and setting world aviation records. Robert Hoot Gibson. He will forever be remembered by an iconic photo taken of him free flying without a tether over the Earth on mission STS-41B. During the flight, he tested the Man Maneuvering Unit, a jet-powered backpack that allowed him to float away from the shuttle. 6 years later, he returned to space aboard Discovery to deploy the Hubble Space Telescope. Bruce McCandless. He flew 3 shuttle missions and was a member of the first spacewalking team to repair a satellite in orbit. He launched twice more on the missions immediately before and after the loss of Challenger. He retains the distinction of being the only American to test fly the Russian Man Maneuvering Unit. Currently, he serves as Director of Science, Mathematics, and Technology Education at Western Washington University. George Pinky Nelson. He has flown 5 space shuttle missions, including the maiden flight of Discovery, and logged 770 hours and 27 minutes in space. During his third flight, he helped deploy the Hubble Space Telescope and assisted in its servicing on the next mission. Today, he's a professor of physics and astronomy at the University of Kansas. Steve Hawley. He is a veteran of 5 shuttle missions and the first astronaut to log 1,000 hours on the shuttle. He made NASA's first unplanned spacewalk and performed 3 spacewalks during his first Hubble Space Telescope repair mission. He is currently a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Jeff Hoffman. He is a veteran of 3 space shuttle missions and was the first African-American space shuttle commander. He has led the agency's Safety and Mission Assurance Office, the Human Spaceflight Office, and served as NASA's Deputy Administrator and as its Acting Administrator. Fred Gregory. He flew 5 space shuttle missions and 1 long-duration Mir space station mission. He piloted 2 flights, including the 3rd flight following the Challenger tragedy. He went on to command 2 missions before becoming the 3rd American to live aboard the Russian Mir space station and set an American record of 128 days in orbit. John Blaha. She flew 4 space shuttle missions during her 12 years in the astronaut corps. As a mission specialist, she took part in the first and only 3-person spacewalk in May of 1992. She served as mission specialist aboard the first Hubble Space Telescope repair mission and later served as the payload commander. She co-authored an elementary science textbook series in partnership with NASA, currently serves as Associate Dean for graduate programs in the University of Virginia School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, Kathy Thornton. He is a 4-flight veteran, piloting his first 2 space shuttle missions. Later, he commanded STS-65, during which he and his crew set a record for the longest shuttle mission at that time, and STS-88, the first space station assembly mission. He is currently the center director right here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, Robert Cabana. He piloted STS-38, a Department of Defense mission, then commanded STS-51, which concluded with the first night landing at the Kennedy Space Center. On his 3rd and final mission, STS-105, he commanded the International Space Station for 117 days. He has served in many NASA leadership roles, including ISS Deputy Program Manager, but is now Senior Vice President, Deputy General Manager of the Advanced Programs Group at Orbital Sciences Corporation, where he oversees all human spaceflight for the company. Frank Culbertson. He piloted the precedent-setting mission to the crippled Hubble Space Telescope in 1993, capturing and restoring it to full capability through a record 5 spacewalks, then commanded the 2nd maintenance mission. He lived aboard the International Space Station from November 2nd through May 2003 as commander of Expedition 6, the first crew of U.S. astronauts to return to Earth in the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. Currently, he is SpaceX Vice President of Astronaut Safety and Mission Assurance, Ken Bowersox. Ladies and gentlemen, our Hall of Fame astronauts. And now I'd like to welcome to the podium Hall of Fame astronaut and Kennedy Space Center Director, Mr. Robert Cabana.
Thanks, John. On behalf of NASA and the entire KSC team, I'd like to welcome you all to the Kennedy Space Center. This is always a fun event and something that I look forward to. It's great to have these 3 outstanding inductees back here in Florida. Franklin, your journey from Costa Rica to coming up here on this stage is something very special, and I think for any child that ever had a dream, you're an inspiration. Chile, you know, you pretty much excelled as an astronaut. I think those 4 stars you wore in the Air Force show your excellence there, but I bet if I asked you what you're most proud of, your finest accomplishment, it'd be Kathy and those 4 girls, and I'm sorry they couldn't be here. Charlie? Pozdravляю, my drug. I promise not to tell any stories about you in Russia if you promise not to tell any about me, Chief. In spite of what some of you may have heard, the ending of the shuttle program has not ended human spaceflight at NASA, and KSC is not shutting down. KSC continues to make great strides at becoming a multi-user government and commercial spaceport of the future. Renovations out at Launch Pad 39B, the Vehicle Assembly Building, the LCC, are all on track to support the Space Launch System and the Multi-Purpose Crew Vehicle. In fact, assembly of the first test multi-purpose crew vehicle, Orion, hardware is arriving at this time. Right now, it's being assembled over in the ONC, newly refurbished ONC High Bay for a test flight in 2014. And there are visible signs that the commercial space industry continues to make progress also. We've got Space Florida continuing to prepare OPF Bay 3 for Boeing and their CST-100 spacecraft. Yesterday, Sierra Nevada announced an increased presence here at KSC. And SpaceX Falcon 9 launch coming up here with Dragon, taking cargo to the International Space Station, shows their progress. Our path forward continues to be challenging, but the KSC team is definitely up to the challenge, and I know we're going to excel. So to Franklin, Chili, and Charlie, my sincere congratulations on a well-deserved honor. And to Chili and Charlie, Sox and Frank and I are just glad somebody else is going to walk in behind us next year.
Thank you, Bob. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hall of Fame astronaut and Astronaut Scholarship Foundation Chairman, Charlie Duke.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, everyone. It's great to be here with you today, and I want to thank you for supporting this great event. The inductions are always a highlight of the year for me. And the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation was founded by the 6 surviving members of the America's original Mercury 7 astronauts in 1984. The foundation has been going strong for almost 3 decades, and I am proud to be its chairman. Our goal is to aid the United States in retaining its world leadership in science and technology by providing scholarships to top college students pursuing degrees in these fields. In the beginning, the award was $1,000, and there were 7 scholarships given, 1 representing each Mercury astronaut. The foundation now distributes 28 $10,000 scholarships annually and has awarded, since its inception, nearly $3.5 million. Our scholarships are the largest monetary award given in the United States to science and engineering students at the undergraduate level, and it's based solely on merit. Our scholarship recipients, let's give it. Our scholarship recipients are the best and brightest in the country, and we have some here. Would all of our scholarships that are present stand up and let us welcome you? Thank you so much. We're glad to support your educational efforts. Not only does the foundation provide scholarships, but we also promote to the general public the importance of science, technology, and space exploration in the U.S. One way we do this is by serving as a consultant to NASA and the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex for the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, where we supervise the selection process of new astronauts for induction. To do so, we have put together an outside committee of Hall of Fame astronauts, aerospace professionals, journalists, retired NASA, and industry officials, some of which are here today. Would these individuals please stand so that we can thank you for your support? Anybody? I know you're here. Yeah, there's Bob. Thank you very much for helping in selecting the class of 2012. Now, to celebrate this year's inductees, we held a wonderful gala last night over at the Apollo Saturn V Center. Some of y'all might have been there. And we heard from the 19 astronaut scholars who were working all around the globe, launching rockets, researching medical advancements, and furthering technology. And this event today and last night would not have been possible without our friends at NASA. Bob Cabana, who you've already heard from, as well as Kevin Kelly and Bill Moore. Bill's here somewhere, I know. There we are. Thank you, Bill. We're at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. Bill, your sponsorship is really invaluable for us and your help in making this all possible. I'd also like to thank our top induction sponsors this year, which include ATK, the Boeing Company, Courtyard by Marriott in Cocoa Beach, the Northrop Grumman Company, James Long, Lockheed Martin, and all the others who supported this event. And now let's give them all a hand. They've been very generous in their support. And now let me turn it back over to John to induct this year's class into the Hall of Fame. Welcome to the club, guys.
Thank you, Charlie. You folks are really lucky today because as I said, I've done many of these, and this is a tremendous group, probably the largest group that I think we've ever had, right, in a long time. And the time has arrived. The induction of the 11th class of Space Shuttle astronauts into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. They will be introduced in the order in which they flew into space. Our first inductee is Dr. Franklin R. Chang Diaz. During his 25 years in the astronaut program, Franklin Chang Diaz became one of only 2 astronauts to fly on 7 space shuttle missions: STS-61C, STS-34, STS-46, STS-60, STS-75, STS-91, and STS-111. Did I leave any out, Franklin? He has logged more than 1,601 hours in space, a total that includes 19 hours and 31 minutes accumulated during 3 spacewalks. His missions into space included numerous scientific experiments and achievements, as well as the deployment of numerous satellites. As part of the crew of STS-34 Atlantis, he took part in the successful deployment of the Galileo spacecraft on its journey to explore Jupiter. He has mapped atmospheric ozone levels, researched on the effects of microgravity on plants, and flew on the first joint U.S.-Russian space shuttle mission on which a Russian cosmonaut was a crew member. On his final mission, STS-111, he installed the mobile-based system on the International Space Station, and he replaced the failed wrist joint on the Canada-2 arm. Chang Diaz retired from NASA in July of 2005 and then founded Ad Astra Rocket Company, which is dedicated to the development of advanced plasma rocket propulsion technology. Ad Astra's efforts have led to the production of a rocket that has the theoretical, Franklin tells me it's more than theoretical, capability of carrying a manned mission to Mars in just 39 days. Let's take a look at a few video highlights from his career.
Captain Franklin, you are now go to remove the MBS thermal blankets.
Okay, thanks.
Really excited to be here. It's going to be my first flight. I'm really looking forward to it.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff. Liftoff of Columbia on mission 61C, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll, Columbia.
'Copy. You can see deploy now.
Yeah, that's a nice, pretty picture, Franklin. Thank you.
1, and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Atlantis on a mission for new utility in space.
1, booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery on a whole new era of space flight between the United States and Russia.
Of the Space Shuttle Columbia, continuing space research through tethered satellite technology. And liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery as NASA
NASA embarks on the final mission to dock with Russia's space station Mir. Liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour, extending our reach while expanding our research in space.
This is a good view from Franklin Chang Diaz's helmet camera looking past those debris shields.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, astronaut Franklin Chang Diaz. To present Franklin Chang Diaz for induction into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame, please welcome Hall of Fame astronaut George Pinky Nelson.
Franklin and Peggy. So it's an honor to do this, Franklin. Franklin was the first Latin American to fly in space. He was See, he was born in Costa Rica, and just like kids all over the world, Franklin wanted to be an astronaut when he grew up. He followed the early space missions on the radio in Costa Rica. Didn't speak English, but he knew the names of the early astronauts. He knew Al Shepard and John Young and all you guys. But there was one astronaut he could never figure out who was on, seemed like every mission. There was this astronaut named Roger that they kept talking about. Did you ever get to meet him? Yeah, good. In 1967, Franklin wrote a letter to Wernher von Braun. They said, what do I need to do to be an astronaut? And von Braun didn't answer, but he did get an answer back from someone at the Marshall Space Flight Center. And there was actually an underlined part of the letter that said, well, one of the things you need to be is a U.S. citizen. And not to be deterred, after he graduated from high school, Franklin left Costa Rica and came to the United States to be an astronaut. He didn't speak English, so he went to high school for a year and and learned to speak English. Then he went on to college, got a degree in mechanical engineering, and on to MIT. It was an auspicious beginning when he came to the United States. Like I said, he didn't speak English, and I don't know how long it was, Franklin, but it was some significant period of time when Franklin survived on coffee donut, which was the only English phrase he knew. But he did learn English, and he learned engineering, and he went to MIT, and he learned plasma physics, and he learned to fly, and he became a United States citizen. And in 1980, he became an astronaut candidate, which is an absolutely remarkable thing for a kid from Costa Rica to pretty much will themselves to do, right? So he moved to Houston. He married Peggy. His first flight was STS-61C, and I owe Franklin from that flight. He actually saved me from a life of drug abuse. We had 5 launch attempts on that mission, and after one of the early launch attempts, Franklin came up to me, and I had been taking, almost from superstition, we used to take this medication called Scopedex. It was a little half a pill of scopolamine and half a pill of dextrine. So one was an upper and one was a downer. And the rumor was that it would keep you from getting space sick. And after, I think it was the second launch attempt, Franklin came up and put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Pinky, I don't think you should take scope decks anymore. It makes you really weird." And I kicked it. Never took it again. So over 12 years, Franklin flew 7 times. Franklin was probably the most comfortable astronaut I've known. He just seemed to fit in whatever was going on around there. But I think just as importantly and uniquely in the astronaut office, Franklin came in as a scientist and an engineer, and he worked really hard to maintain that status while he was being assigned to flights and working on missions. He used to carry around a notebook where he would solve the Maxwell's equations and the Navier-Stokes equations, and I remember looking at it one day. Actually, Charlie Bolden showed it to me. At the top of the page, it said something like, "I will now show that we can build the nozzle," something, and then it was followed by all of these equations. And so he continued to push the envelope, and after he left NASA, Franklin has continued to push the envelope at his company, Ad Astra, and he's got an engine that runs. I mean, it's hard enough to solve Maxwell's equations and the Navier-Stokes equations together, right? But to actually build a machine that solves those equations in the way you want and produces thrust out the back end is an amazing thing. And as he says, he thinks he can get us to Mars in 39 days if we work at it. So, Franklin, we can only hope the country has the vision and the courage to pursue these kind of goals. And you've done incredible things, but I really believe that your biggest impact is yet to come. So I can't imagine the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame without Franklin Chang in it. So welcome aboard, Franklin.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. I don't have words prepared, but I will speak from the heart. I'm a product of 2 cultures. And this honor here has a special meaning to me because it's given by those who have always been my heroes. And these folks here are the people that I looked up to since I was very young. And I think this whole thing is like a chain, and there are many others, probably young kids like I was, that are looking up to us and following their dreams. And one thing I always say is that no one gets anywhere without someone else's help. And I sure had my dose of help from a lot of people in Costa Rica and the United States, beginning with my mother. Mamá, muchas gracias por venir con ayudarme. Ahora sí. My mother. And many other members of my family. I have brothers. I have one of my daughters here. I have my wife, Peggy, who's been behind me all this time, difficult times of danger of going into space so many times. Thank you, Peggy, for being by my side. And but I'm actually today most thankful to this great nation that in 1968 opened the doors for me. A dreamer that came to the shores of this country, and this country opened the doors to the land of opportunity, to the American dream. And I can say that I fulfilled that dream. And the dream is alive here in this country. It's a great country. It's the best country on this planet. Perhaps we have to look at it from the outside to appreciate the beauty that we have in these 50 states, the goals, the aspirations, and the difficulties that we face. But the future is bright, and we've got, the table served. We need to keep it and protect it. And I think for these young scholars that are looking to the future is great. The future is absolutely great. And this country will be the leader. And I am very proud to be part of that team. So thank you so much for this honor.
Congratulations, Dr. Franklin Chang Diaz, and welcome to the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. Roger just called for you. I told him you were busy. You'd call him back. Our second inductee today is General Kevin P. Chilton. A three-time space shuttle astronaut, Kevin Chilton has logged more than 704 hours in space. He served as the pilot on STS-49 and STS-59 and as the commander of STS-76. In 1992, Chilton launched aboard STS-49, the maiden voyage of the space shuttle Endeavour. During the mission, the crew performed a record 4 EVAs to retrieve, repair, and deploy the International Telecommunications Satellite, and to demonstrate and evaluate numerous EVA tasks to be used for the assembly of the space station Freedom, the proposed orbiting laboratory that served as the forerunner to the International Space Station. As pilot on STS-59, he took part in the deployment of the Space Radar Laboratory, or SRL, to study the Earth's surface and atmosphere. And as commander on STS-76, he guided the shuttle for its third docking with the Russian space station Mir, which began a continuous 2-year presence of Americans aboard the Russian space station. After an 11-year career with NASA, Chilton returned to the Air Force, where he most recently served as Commander, United States Strategic Command, Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska, a position in which he was responsible for the global command and control of U.S. strategic forces to meet decisive national security objectives. Chilton retired from the Air Force on February 1st, 2011, having attained the rank of 4-star general. Let's take a look at some of the video highlights from his career.
Of the maiden voyage of Endeavour on a satellite rescue mission.
The use of this ergometer is part of an evaluation to investigate alternatives to the shuttle treadmill.
Zero and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Endeavour, observing the changes of planet Earth.
Mind your roll, Endeavor. Commander Sid Gutierrez in the blue shirt, pilot Kevin Chilton in the red shirt, and payload commander Linda Godwin just moving out of the frame.
The final thing that's unique about this flight over the other two previous flights to mirror is the particular science we're conducting on the mission.
1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Atlantis on the third shuttle mirror docking flight.
We have a good image of you, Chili.
The first time in my 3 shuttle flights that I've actually gone someplace when I left the planet Earth, and it's a very nice feeling.
Ladies and gentlemen, astronaut Kevin Chilton. To present Kevin Chilton for induction into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame, please welcome Hall of Fame astronaut Dan Brandenstein.
Well, good afternoon. You heard the rundown of Chili's technical achievements, but one of the things I remember most about Chili is his dedication to his family, a dedicated family man. And he is fortunate to have his wife, Kathy, with him here today. She's a general in her own right. He also is the father of 4 daughters, which demonstrates he is really a fighter pilot. And they refer to the daughters as the 4 M's. Daughter number 1, Madison, is graduating from the United States Air Force Academy and will put on a lieutenant's bar here in a few days. Daughter number 2, Mary Kate, is a sophomore at the University of Nebraska. Daughter number 3, Megan, is graduating from high school and going on to Penn State University. And daughter number 4, Morgan, is, Kathy says, going to go balloon riding, but I don't think that's really true. She's a sophomore in high school. So you can imagine these 4 M's coming home to dinner at night and having dinner with 2 generals every night. Well, in addition to being a terrific family man, there are a few other things that Chili has done. He graduated as a distinguished graduate of the Air Force Academy in '76, went on to get a master's as a Guggenheim Fellowship at Columbia, had operational tours in RF-4s and F-15s, went to U.S. Air Force Squadron Officer School, was first in his class, a little bit of a trend developing here. Went back to flying F-15s, went to TPS, Air Force TPS, was first in his class, and then he went on to be a test pilot at Eglin. He joined the astronaut office in 1988, the class of '88, and his first flight was on STS-49. I was fortunate enough to be the commander of that flight, and he was a rookie on the flight. But let you tell me, he performed like a pro. Just a quick recap, if you remember the mission, we were supposed to go up, have 4 spacewalks. 1, we were going to rescue a satellite, Nilsat, and then we were going to do 3 spacewalks to develop operational procedures for the assembly of a space station. Well, the reality of the mission was that the first attempt to capture the satellite didn't work, and we chased it around for a while, and it went out of control, and we backed off, and they got it under control again, came back the next day, chased it even more, still didn't get it, and ultimately redesigned the mission on the fly, and were successful by having 3 people outside to catch the satellite. Now, Chili's role as the pilot, between Kathy Thornton, Bruce Melnick on the arm, and myself chasing the satellite, we were all pretty focused on that, and Chili was instrumental in that mission because he kept the situational awareness. He knew the big picture of what was going on. At any point in time, he kept saying, okay, if we got to abort, we can do this. We got to abort, we can do that. So he was really on top of where we were, what was happening, and fortunately, we didn't have to do any of that, but it was very important, and that's why I said, even though he was a rookie, he was operating like a pro. Well, then after the second day where we didn't capture it, we had to come up with a new idea on how to get a hold of this. And I remember that night we theoretically were supposed to be asleep, and Kevin and I are peering out the back window looking in the payload bay, looking for natural resources on how to come up with another approach. A little while later, a couple of other crew heads popped up out of the middeck, and we devised, actually, I think we came up with 2 approaches that we relayed to the ground. But once again, Kevin was key in developing these ideas, and he was a great artist. So back then, we didn't have all this internet stuff on board the vehicle. So he was drawing little sketches on a paper and holding them up in front of the TV camera to show the ground what our idea was. Well, fortunately, the idea worked. We went through all the safety thought process of how to have 3 people do a spacewalk, and sold it to the ground. Now, after the flight, we sat around and said, you know, if 2 years before we'd have told them we wanted to do it this way, we'd have never been able to sell it. But we were able to do it overnight, and once again, Chili was key to that. So he performed like a pro throughout this whole mission. One of the experiences we had during training actually was right down here at the Cape. We were training one day, trained hard all day, and then we went into town that evening. Had a big van. We had a crew of 7 in there. We were going to go in and do some post-training relaxing. It was during Lent, and Kevin wasn't going to partake of some of the training or post-flight training we were going to do, so he was a designated driver. So after a night of debriefing, and we were on our way back, and as we came through the gate at Cape Canaveral, I remember him saying, he said, "We got to be careful here because the security hangs out, and easy to get a speeding ticket." And we round the bend, and lo and behold, there were flashing lights in our rearview mirror. So he wasn't exactly doing what he said, but we got pulled over, and we had the world's greatest security person. He came up and lectured for 20 minutes on the dangers of encountering the wildlife at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station at high speed. You got your deer. They come up through the window and they kill you. You got your hogs. You run over them, you roll in a ditch, and you die. You got your gators. They run you in the ditch, and you die too, you know. And then he said, "Who's your supervisor?" And Kevin goes, because I was sitting next to him. And so anyhow, after his 20-minute lecture, he let us go. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, in my office back in Houston, I get this letter with the citation on it about this criminal that they had arrested at the Cape. And I figured after enduring that 20-minute lecture by that overzealous security person, he'd had enough punishment, and we let him off the hook. After that, he flew 2 more shuttle missions. He was the pilot on the Space Radar Laboratory mission, and then he commanded STS-76 to space to the Mir, precursor to the space station. Also in this time frame, Brewster retired and left the office, so Max Q, that world-famous rock band, needed a new rhythm guitarist. And Chili stepped right in and took over and did a great job at that. As he finished his flights, he went over and he was a deputy program manager for the International Space Station. You know, things up there now working great. Well, he was in the early development of the operational procedures and played a key role in the success of the space station. After that, he returned to the Air Force. His trend of excellence continued there. He rapidly rose through the ranks and had a variety of command and staff billets. The last 2 were probably the greatest. He was commander of the U.S. Space Command, and he was also the commander following that of the Strategic Command. And that's where he got his 4th star. The Strategic Command was responsible, or there he had the responsibilities for the plans and operations for all U.S. forces conducting strategic deterrence, and also for all DoD space and cyberspace operations. So it was really a significant role. You know, as he left the office, and having worked with him and knew that he was, you know, really a sharp guy, I had him pegged. I figured he was going to go back and get 4 stars, and I kind of figured he was going to end up being Chief of Staff of the Air Force. Well, Chili proved to be smarter than that. Chief of Staff lives in the Pentagon, does all his work in Washington, so Chili lines up the Stratcom where he's in Omaha, and he's doing real operations. And he did a really great job at that also, because throughout his career, you know, he demonstrated strong leadership, intelligence, exceptional intelligence, unparalleled devotion to duty, and visionary planning. And to attest to this, the key speakers at his Air Force retirement and change of command were Defense Secretary Gates, who was followed by Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mullen, followed by the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Schwartz, and Chile, today it's just me. And I am honored to say that, ladies and gentlemen, the newest member of the Astronaut Hall of Fame, Kevin Chilton.
Well, thank you, Skipper. Dan was my first commander, and we called him our skipper since he was in the Navy, and he's still my skipper. Thanks for those kind words. The part about the driving, though, coming through the gate there, of course, I was stone sober. So when this sergeant had finished correcting my driving skills, and he asked who my boss was, you know, I did one of these, and Dan did one of these. So I knew I might get off a little light that night. Folks, it's hard. It's so hard for me. I was telling Kathy when I was sitting down there, I said, I'm getting really nervous, you know, and I've spoken in front of large crowds before, certainly, so why? It's because I'm so humbled by this. And this is just such a tremendous honor to be recognized by the folks who are recognizing us today, both people that I grew up admiring here in the first two rows, and in the back row, folks that I proudly call colleagues and friends. And so to be standing last night on the stage with Franklin Chang and Charlie Precourt, two great friends, great Americans, and two people that are so deserving of this recognition, for me to have the opportunity to share the stage with them and then to stand here with this tremendous legacy of our great space program and of our great nation gives me pause. And I'm so humbled by it. You know, this is a day of thanks, and you have to be careful on days of thanks that you might leave somebody out. So, thank you all. The other thing I want to clear up right now, because I've gotten some strange looks since I've been down here this week. Yes, I really am Kevin Chilton. That guy up there with all the hair, he's a stand-in. I've had more double takes today. People look, or the last couple of days, they look at that picture and they look at me and said, what happened to you? I say 4 teenage daughters. Charlie Duke and Lynn LeBlanc from the ASF, I want to commend you for just putting on a wonderful show, a wonderful event, but also for your leadership with the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. And clearly, that's a big part of the Hall of Fame here, is supporting that. And to all the scholars that are here today, as Franklin says, you have such a bright future. And I just hope sometime along the way that, that you find a little time in your careers, your very interesting and exciting careers that you have in front of you, to pay a little back to NASA and come back and do a little work for this great organization, or perhaps for the Department of Defense as well. It's a great way to bring your skills and knowledge sets back to help the United States of America. And I offer my congratulations to all of you for being Astronaut Scholarship Fellows. For the panel that selected us to this, the chairman of that panel is Mr. Bob Seek. And so Bob's not an astronaut. He's sitting down there. He's a race car driver is what he'll tell you. But I think all of us here left the planet under the watchful tutelage and guidance and decision-making, critical decision-making of our launch control director, and that was Bob Seek. Every time I left the planet, Bob, when you said we were go, I knew we were going and I knew we were coming back. So Bob, thanks so much for making me a part of this. I, too, would like to thank my mother and father, who are alive and still with me, thankfully, in Southern California, but because of health reasons could not travel to be with us here today. The 4 M's, Madison, Mary, Megan, and Morgan, are just the light of my life. And guess what they're doing in May? Studying for final exams. So Kathy and I thought that it was more important for them to finish that. And so I'm so proud of the 4 of them. And my hero. You know, folks always accuse us astronauts of being heroes, and I tell them all the time, you got it wrong. Picture this. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, standing on top of the roof of the Launch Control Center with a 6-year-old daughter in one hand, a 4-year-old daughter in the other hand, a good friend of the family holding your 2-year-old daughter, and you're 8 months pregnant, and your husband's 3 miles away sitting on top of 4.5 million pounds of high explosives. Now, who's the hero? It's my wife, Kathy. I love you. You know, like Franklin said, none of us could achieve anything in life without a lot of help. And there's a whole long list of people I could list, but I'm not going to. I'm going to mention 4 people, though, that are with us here today. Because they affected my life early on, and they, to me, represent every one of you in the audience and on stage here, and other people that aren't here today who have helped me along the way through my life. And that's former Major, now retired Colonel Bob Smith and his wife, Cheryl, who was my first flight commander when I was a first lieutenant flying RF-4Cs over in Okinawa. And my boss at the time, then Lieutenant Colonel Ken Habedank, his wife Karen, now retired Major General Ken Habedank. These 2 gentlemen took a chance on me when I was a first lieutenant, and they opened some doors that I'm convinced started a series of dominoes and the opening of other doors and bridges to cross that never would have happened, ever would have happened, if these 2 great leaders of our United States Air Force had not done that. On top of that, these 2 men taught me at an early age what it meant to lead people and take care of them, as did their spouses who brought me in as a young bachelor into their family. So Ken and Karen, Bob and Cheryl, God bless you. Thank you for traveling here to be with us here today, and you represent so many good things that have happened in my life. And last night when we were coming home from the wonderful dinner we had and gala reception, I was sitting on the bus in front of Karen, and Ken and Karen and Bob and Cheryl really hadn't as much exposure to NASA, and they just had a wonderful time last night. And Karen looked at me and paused in the middle, and she says, you know, Chili, you really have 3 families. And I thought for a minute, and I thought, you know, you're right. I have my wife, Kathy, and 4 beautiful daughters. I have a great Air Force family that I started to be a member of in 1972. And I have this family, the NASA family. What a blessed man I am to have 3 families that love me and that I so dearly love. God bless you all, and thanks again so much for this wonderful honor.
Congratulations, Kevin Chilton, and welcome to the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. Remember Bob Seek, you know, after there would be a delay and, you know, they'd have to postpone a shuttle, and he'd come over and we'd have a little press conference, and Bob used to always say, and I'd ask him, I'd say, Bob, what went wrong? Why'd you have delay? Bob would always say, John, this is a complicated vehicle. It's not a 747. He always said that. Our 3rd inductee today is Colonel Charles J. Precourt. A veteran of 4 space shuttle flights, Charles Precourt spent 15 years in the space program and logged a total of 932 hours in space. As a mission specialist on STS-55 Columbia, he took part in nearly 90 experiments investigating life sciences, material sciences, physics, robotics, astronomy, the Earth and its atmosphere. On his 2nd flight, STS-71, Precourt piloted the first space shuttle mission to dock with the Russian space station Mir. As commander of STS-84, he and the Atlantis crew transferred nearly 4 tons of supplies and equipment between the space shuttle and the Mir. On his final shuttle mission, STS-91, Precourt served as commander during the 9th and final shuttle Mir docking mission, during which the crew conducted the alpha magnetic spectrometer experiment, which involved first-of-its-kind research of antimatter in space. After leaving NASA in March 2005, Precourt went to work for ATK Aerospace Systems of Magna, Utah. He currently serves as General Manager and Vice President of Space Launch Systems for ATK. Let's take a look at some video highlights from his career.
3, 2, 1. Solid rocket ignition and liftoff. Liftoff of Columbia on a Blue Sea.
Let's get some really good data, and everything's working really well for us. So we just wanted to take a couple of minutes and wish you happy birthday, Leonard. You gotta love it when a plan comes together.
The drag chute being deployed by pilot Charlie Precourt and nose gear touchdown.
Liftoff of the Space Shuttle Atlantis, maintaining America's constant presence in space. Charlie Precourt preparing for his 4th flight into space today. He served as commander of STS-84 and pilot on mission STS-71, and he was a mission specialist on STS-65.
Ladies and gentlemen, astronaut Charles J. Precourt. To present Charles Precourt for induction into the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame, please welcome Hall of Fame astronaut Hoot Gibson.
Thank you very much. And Charlie, thank you so much for letting me be part of your very special day. This is really a pleasure for me. Charlie has some very important people that are here today. Number one, his beautiful wife of 34 years, Lynn, sitting down here in the very front row with us. Charlie also has 2 of his 3 children here today, Michelle and Amy, both of whom are overachievers as well in medical school. His other daughter, Sarah, would be here, but she's an overachiever as well. She is less than a month from delivering their 3rd grandchild. So he has some very important people here today, and extremely important, Mom and Dad. Charles and Helen Precourt from Hudson, Massachusetts are here with us today. Mom and Dad, congratulations. You brought up a real superstar. You know, my first thought about what I'm going to do when I get up here is, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to roast Charlie. And I got to thinking about it, and actually, for once, I was guilty of some good judgment, because it occurred to me, you know what? He's got a whole heck of a lot more on me than I've got on him. So maybe it might be smart, for a change, not to do that. So I will tell you one joke I used to subject him to all the time. And I used to tell him that his class, the 1990 class of astronauts, prior to them, we were all wooden ships and iron men. And starting with the 1990 class, they were all just a bunch of computer geeks. I used to subject him to that all the time. But you know what I figured out about this man? He is good at absolutely everything he touches. He is fluent in French and Russian. And as we mentioned, he's a veteran of 4 space shuttle flights, but he got to experience 5 MECOs. MECO being main engine cutoff, and that's when we launch and we get up to orbital speed, we shut the main engines down and we get MECO. Charlie's first powered flight lasted 3 seconds, and they shut down the main engines on the launch pad. And of course, he expected to be going a little bit faster. And of course, you're sitting there thinking, I sure hope those solid rocket motors don't choose to ignite now, or that the bolts holding us to the launch pad don't fire. So he got to experience in his career 5 MECOs along the way. I got to work with him on STS-71. As the chief astronaut at the time, I picked the very best and brightest crew that I could put together to go do the first docking that a space shuttle ever did with the space station Mir. So of course, that meant Charlie as the pilot. I wasn't planning on being there myself, but I am so happy that I got to fly and work and train with Charlie, and it was an absolute pleasure working with him. Biggest challenge for me on that mission was not any of the flight dynamics or any of the flying tasks. It was attempting, underline the word attempting, to learn to speak Russian. Because at the time, most of the Russians really couldn't speak much of any English, and they couldn't afford at the time to buy English textbooks or hire English teachers, so we had to attempt to learn to speak Russian. And the problem with that is, I are an engineer. Engineers don't talk good, not even in English. And so trying to learn Russian for me was a real struggle. And we had a Russian language teacher, this nice middle-aged Russian lady, Tatiana. But Tatiana was not the slightest bit impressed that we were astronauts or that we were going to go do the first Mir docking. She expected us to study, do our homework, and be able to speak Russian. And she'd rattle off some sentence at us, and Greg Harbaugh and I would stare at her with this deer-in-the-headlights look. And of course, Charlie understood every single word. I did apply myself, and I've learned 2 sentences in Russian. Anytime someone would try to speak to me in Russian, I would say, "Я говорю по-русски очень плохо и понимаю ничего," which is, I speak Russian very badly and understand nothing. But I actually learned a second sentence, because when we launched aboard Atlantis, we had Anatoly Solovyev and Nikolai Budarin on our crew aboard Atlantis to take over the Mir space station when we got there. And so what if I needed to talk to them? So I memorized another sentence, and it was, "Извините, пожалуйста, у нас есть маленький пожар на борту прямо сейчас," which is, "Excuse me, please, we have a small fire on board right now." So I was ready in case that happened. Training and readiness is really what we've got to do. Now, the other thing was, I've mentioned how much Tatiana tormented us. Well, I learned an expression every time I'd be really exasperated, which was every time we went to Russian language class. I would look at Tatiana and I would say, "Moya samaya lubimaya muchitelnitsa." And she'd say, "Нет, нет, нет," which is, of course, no, 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 because of my vast command of the Russian language. And what I was saying to her, if I had said, "Moya samaya lubimaya uchitelnitsa," that's my most favorite teacher. But if you just put an M in front of uchitelnitsa, it becomes "Moya samaya lubimaya muchitelnitsa," which is my most favorite torturer. So that was my way of tormenting her in return for all the stress that she put me through. Well, after training and flying with Charlie and seeing him in action, I said something about him in 1995, and Charlie, I don't think I've ever shared this with you, but you're about to hear it. And what I said about him was, you know, after working with him and getting to know him, I will be really surprised if he isn't chief astronaut one day. Well, guess what? After 4 brilliant missions and 3 times going to the Mir space station, including the very last docking with Mir, in 1998, Charlie became the chief astronaut. And he went on from there to be the deputy program manager of the International Space Station. And as we know, he is now the vice president at ATK. He has gone right to the very top in everything he's ever done. And we are all here today to celebrate just your latest great achievement. So from all of us at the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, congratulations, Charlie, and welcome to the Astronaut Hall of Fame.
Thank you so much. And I think you all understand now why I had so much fun flying with Hoot. We used to say Hoot's a hoot. And there's nothing better than when you have a tough mission than to have a sense of humor and to stay together as a team. And Hoot, I'll always respect what you've taught me and the opportunity I had to work with you. So this is a tremendous honor. It's obviously very humbling. And I'm just really thrilled to be here with you today and be able to share some memories and an opportunity to join this fraternity of folks who I think are paying it back in spades. We've had opportunities in the space program that go beyond our wildest dreams, and I'm very, very thrilled in particular that this represents the work of the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation, who is paying it back, and we get to be a part of that for the students like we have out here today that are inspiring us for what we're able to do for them. So thank you to the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation for all that you're doing. This is a tremendous, tremendous effort. I'm particularly thrilled that I get to be a part of the class of two of my greatest heroes, friends, associates, colleagues. Franklin Chang Diaz and I flew together on STS-91. And, you know, Franklin is an amazing individual. We put together an experiment on STS-91 that was part of a Nobel winner's science called the alpha magnetic spectrometer. Professor Sam Ting, and he is studying antimatter and the origins of the universe. And Franklin's adeptness at putting together missions like that, he taught a Nobel laureate that human spaceflight means you use the human crew, and Franklin's design of how we managed that experiment for Professor Ting saved that experiment on orbit because we lost our KU band antenna, and all the data that he wanted to collect wouldn't have made it to Earth, but Franklin had figured out ahead of time how to make that happen. It's just a privilege to be a part of this class with you, Franklin. And Chile, Chile was my mentor, otherwise known as upperclassman. Just when I came up on the stage, he reminded me to get my chin in, which is what upperclassmen used to do when we were Dooley's freshmen at the academy. 1973, when I first went there, and Kevin's always been a hero, someone that I looked up to, was the model for how to proceed, how to decide, how to choose your way in life. It's just been a thrill and an honor to know you through life, Kevin. The Astronaut Scholarship Foundation is important, as I mentioned, because it's all about the opportunity for us to pay it forward to the next generation. And education is so critical. When I think about my own opportunities in life and how much education meant to me, I think of my parents, Mom and Dad, the wisdom that they had to choose Hudson, Massachusetts, a little town where I went to a 6-room schoolhouse, less than 100 yards from my house. And I learned that it wasn't so much about how much money you pour into the facilities and the tools, but it's a teacher with a motivation to teach in an environment where it's conducive to learning and engaging a student one-on-one and imparting knowledge and using that to leapfrog forward. And thanks, Mom and Dad, for giving me that start. It's just incredible. So, and you think about all the changes in life, and in our lifetimes, the changes have been phenomenal. We grew up in the Cold War, and I went to the Air Force Academy thanks to the education I had. And I found myself in the early 1980s flying F-15s in Germany, and I was flying to the East German border. This was before the wall came down, and lo and behold, there's a MiG on the other side, a MiG aircraft coming in close to the border, wagging its wings, and we'd wag our wings and we'd turn away. And then a mere station mere, but a mere 6 years later, I find myself with our Cold War warriors from the other side, the Russians, interfacing with a young colonel by the name of Vasily Tsibliev, who was my counterpart, became my counterpart as the chief of the Cosmonaut Corps, but he was on the space station, and who would have imagined that as a guy who used to be flying to defend ourselves from them, and we were collaborating in space a mere 6 years later. It's just a tremendous, tremendous change, and to be a part of that is extremely humbling. And then after that mission, to be able to have my wife and my daughters come join me in Star City, Moscow, and to share this momentous change in history, and that the fact that they had been behind me for my entire career. Love you, Lynn. Love you, girls. It just... We brought them to Moscow. We brought them to Moscow, and a parallel universe opened up for us, because when the Cold War was there and the Iron Curtain was up, we had no way of knowing that they lived, dreamt, and imagined a future the same that we did. And my girls got to go to the elementary school just down the street from the parents of Vasily Tsibliev and experience the same thing that they were experiencing back home. Just amazing, amazing turns of events. So as I think forward, and the connection, as Kevin mentioned, the families that we have and how blessed we are, being able to connect my family to this NASA experience has been really incredible. And I'd like to share one little story with you, an anecdote that I hope you'll find as funny as we do, because our family loves to tell it. Our daughter Sarah couldn't be here today, but on my third mission on reentry, we had a very rare condition where we were able to re-enter from north to south over the U.S. We entered over Seattle and transited the entire United States across St. Louis into Florida and landed here at the Kennedy Space Center. And normally we come from south to north up over the Gulf and into Florida. But this particular day was brilliant in weather. I don't think there was a cloud across the entire United States. We came into the reentry. It was about 10 a.m. here, and it was sunrise on the West Coast. And we came plowing through the atmosphere at 40 degrees angle of attack, and we went screaming across the Rocky Mountains, did a roll reversal over top of St. Louis, came in over the northern end of the Florida panhandle down over the Cape, and made that circle to land. Well, we had a crosswind that day, a pretty good one. And as we rolled out on final, right over here to runway 33, I'm going to get blamed for flying with my hands again here. But we had to crab into the wind, to tack into the wind, to maintain our track down the runway. And the families are adjacent to the runway on the apron, where they could almost reach up and touch the orbiter as it goes by for touchdown. And Sarah was, what, about 12 years old at the time? And I'm crabbed into the wind, so the nose is pointed right at her. And she thought I was landing right on her head. And so all the adults are behind the kids, and Sarah's up there going, "Dad, get over! Get over! You're going to miss it!" So I came in and we touched down, and I had no idea she was out there, and I got to hear that story after we got into the crew quarters, and she came up to me, "Dad, did you see me? Did you see me?" "Absolutely, Sarah." As an Air Force guy, we never had a landing signal officer get us onto the deck of a ship, but you're my first and only landing signal officer, and you did a tremendous job. So. Once again, I just feel tremendously honored to be able to be part of this team that now gets to pay it forward for the next generation. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Our family connected to the NASA family is just the most unimaginably rewarding thing that we could have ever had in our lifetime. So thank you so much.
Congratulations, Charlie Precourt, and welcome to the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame. The 2012 inductees were selected by a committee of current Hall of Fame astronauts, former NASA officials, historians, journalists. The process is administered by the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. To be eligible, an astronaut must have made his or her first flight at least 17 years before the induction year and must be retired at least 5 years from the NASA Astronaut Corps. Candidates must be a U.S. citizen, NASA-trained, commander, pilot, or mission specialist, and must have orbited the Earth at least once and made significant contributions to the study of space. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to present to you the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame class of 2012, Franklin R. Chang Diaz, Kevin P. Chilton, and Charlie Precourt. And now all the members of the United States Astronaut Hall of Fame. One final thank you to the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation for all of their great work, and to Bill Moore and his people here at the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. You know, this two-day event that they put on here, it's not like going to the moon. This is hard work, what they do. It has been my pleasure to be here with you today on behalf of the Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex and the Astronaut Scholarship Foundation. Thank you for joining us for this historic ceremony. Please remain standing as the Hall of Fame astronauts make their grand exit down the red carpet.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it, buddy.
The U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame has 3 new members. During an induction ceremony held at the Kennedy Space Center, Franklin Chang Diaz, Kevin Chilton, and Charlie Precourt joined an elite group of American space heroes. Chang Diaz flew on 7 space shuttle flights and logged more than 1,600 hours in space. Chilton was the pilot on STS-49, the first flight of Space Shuttle Endeavour, and was the commander of STS-76. And Precourt flew on 4 space shuttle missions as a mission specialist, a pilot, and a commander. This is the 11th group of space shuttle astronauts named to the Hall of Fame. Earlier inductees represent the Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, Skylab, and Apollo-Soyuz programs. There are now 82 space explorers enshrined in the Astronaut Hall of Fame. 51 years ago, on May 5, 1961, Mercury astronaut Alan Shepard launched aboard his Freedom 7 spacecraft from Cape Canaveral's Launch Complex 5, making him the first American in space. His historic flight came 3 weeks after Russian cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human to do so. Shepard's suborbital flight reached an altitude of 116 miles and lasted about 15 minutes. After traveling just over 300 miles, Shepard and Freedom 7 splashed down safely in the Atlantic Ocean. 20 years ago, on May 7, 1992, Space Shuttle Endeavour launched from the Kennedy Space Center on its maiden voyage, STS-49.
3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of the maiden voyage of Endeavour on a satellite rescue mission.
The 9-day mission included the first 3-person spacewalk, during which mission specialists Pierre Thuot, Richard Heeb, and Tom Akers retrieved and attached the crippled Intel 6 satellite to a new upper stage, then relaunched it to its intended geosynchronous orbit. Providing assistance inside Endeavour was Commander Dan Brandenstein, mission specialists Kathy Thornton and Bruce Melman, and pilot Kevin Chilton, a 2012 inductee of the Astronaut Hall of Fame. NASA commercial partner SpaceX is a step closer on its planned journey to the International Space Station. After its rollout to Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida, the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket was lifted into place for a static engine fire test simulating launch. The exercise ended with all 9 engines firing at full power for 2 seconds. The successful test clears the way for Falcon 9's upcoming demonstration flight to the ISS, as part of NASA's plan for private companies to take over cargo delivery to the orbiting complex.
We finished the 30-year incredible era of shuttle, but very excited about the upcoming launch of SpaceX. What that will do will be to show to the world that America is still the leader in space exploration. It'll provide for us American access to low Earth orbit for cargo initially, and then as we go through the rest of our competition, American access for crew members.
Expedition 31 Soyuz Commander Gennady Padalka, NASA flight engineer Joe Acaba, and flight engineer Sergei Revin participated in traditional ceremonies at the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. The trio later departed for the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan to complete training for their launch to the International Space Station aboard their Soyuz spacecraft later this month. Acaba, Padalka, and Revin are scheduled to conduct a series of pre-launch activities over the next 2 weeks as they prepare for liftoff to the orbital outpost. NASA astronaut Dottie Metcalf Lindenberger will lead an international team of 4 aquanauts on the 16th NASA Extreme Environment Mission Operations, or NEMO expedition, next month off the coast of Key Largo, Florida. The 12-day mission at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean will simulate a visit to an asteroid and test innovative solutions to challenges astronauts expect to face. Joining Metcalf Lindenberger inside the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Aquarius Reef Base undersea habitat will be fellow astronauts Kamiya Yui of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency and Timothy Peake of the European Space Agency. Rounding out the crew is Steve Squires, the Cornell University astronomy professor and principal investigator of the Mars rovers, Spirit and Opportunity. Squires was on the previous NEMO crew. The agency's website, nasa.gov, has won Webby Awards in 2 categories as the best in government. The site received its 4th consecutive People's Voice Award, its 5th overall, and for the first time, captured the annual competition's Judges Award. www.nasa.gov is one of the most visited government URLs, with consistently high customer satisfaction ratings comparable to popular commercial sites.
All 3 engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Its busiest day ever was July 8, 2011, when NASA TV coverage of the launch of STS-135, the final space shuttle mission, was watched by more than 560,000 people at nasa.gov. A Webby Award is the foremost honor recognizing the world's best websites.
Vor den Olympischen Spielen im Sommer rüstet sich die britische Hauptstadt für den Ernstfall. Die Armee hat unter anderem Boden-Luft-Raketen in Stellung gebracht zur Abwehr möglicher terroristischer Anschläge. Erstmal ist das nur ein Manöver, aber in wenigen Wochen wird es dann schon ernst.
Da mag so manchem London-Touristen ein kleiner Schauer über den Rücken laufen, denn hier werden im Wortsinne schwere Geschütze aufgefahren, Luftabwehr und diverse andere Raketen mitten in der Stadt, die sich wenige Wochen vor den Olympischen Spielen zu einer wahren Festung mausert. Zunächst einmal wollen wir unsere Technik testen, sehen, ob wir bereit sind für den sehr unwahrscheinlichen Ernstfall, und wir wollen zeigen, dass wir eine gute und funktionierende Abwehr haben, in der Hoffnung, dass, wenn es jemanden gibt mit bösen Absichten, er sich nochmal anders überlegt. Wachsam sein und auf alles vorbereitet. Erstmal ist es nur ein Manöver der britischen Armee, aber im Sommer geht es dann richtig los. Nicht nur rund um den Olympiapark, sondern auch in Wohnvierteln wie dem Bow Quarter. Das Verteidigungsministerium überlegt, hier auf dem Dach des alten Wasserturms Flugabwehrraketen zu platzieren. Für die Anwohner eine üble Vorstellung. Wie soll ich nachts schlafen mit dem Wissen, dass da Raketen über meinem Kopf sind? Das hier ist eine alte Streichholzfabrik, ein bröckelndes Gebäude und keine Militärbasis. Und dann zeigt uns der Mann noch ein Handyvideo, angeblich aufgenommen in der Nachbarschaft, wo Soldaten offenkundig ihre Ausrüstung haben liegen lassen, ganz unbeaufsichtigt. Eine grobe Sicherheitspanne, wenn die Bilder denn echt sind. Nur gut, dass das alles noch eine Übung ist.
And of course, Typhoon fast jets will be based at RAF Northolt, which is in West London,
to patrol the skies too. So a lot of military personnel involved, and also military personnel who will be manning those security points. They won't be armed, but there are 13,000 British military personnel who will be involved during the Olympics in the security operation.
Jonathan, I mean, you've given us the list there. This is a mighty operation, or potentially, isn't it? There are those who say we're going overboard on this. What is the military view on that?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, perhaps the most controversial issue is the sighting of these missile batteries, air defence batteries, in London, some near residential areas, and there have been some residents who are living near those areas complaining about the idea of setting up these military installations near them. Now, what the military is saying is that they want to have a safe space around the Olympic Games, which means having layered air defences, so you can't just have Typhoon fast jets dealing with any potential threat. You've also got to have missile batteries and helicopters with snipers on board, so you need different military equipment essentially to deal with the various scenarios that could be faced. That said, the Ministry of Defence making very clear there's no specific threat. This would only be used as a last resort, and they're still trying to engage with the public. This warship's going to be open to the public on Bank Holiday Monday here in London, but also trying to reassure the public about all those weapons that are being put around London, that they are there as a last resort, and they are there to guarantee to the public here, but also the wider world, that these games will be secure.
Jonathan, thanks very much.
Heutzutage schreiben Promis ja schon mit Mitte 20 ihre Autobiografie. Warum soll Anori, das Eisbärbaby aus dem Wuppertaler Zoo, das nicht auch schon machen? Die wird morgen immerhin 4 Monate allerdings. Aber als absoluter Star des Wuppertaler Zoos hat Anori schon eine ganze Menge erlebt. Der Trubel um das Eisbärgehege erinnert stark an Knut, der ja ein Halbbruder von Anori war. Und für die Zoobesucher ist die Kleine einfach nur süß. Für den Zoo selbst ist Anori aber auch ein wirtschaftlicher Vorteil. Und diesen Aspekt hat sich Gina Ostorff heute mal genauer angeguckt.
Da vorne, da ist Geld in seiner niedlichsten Form. Unser Eisbärmädchen Anori ist der Publikumsmagnet im Wuppertaler Zoo. Allein 70.000 Menschen haben sich die kleine Eisbärdame schon angeschaut in den Osterferien. Ganz wichtige Sache für den Zoo. Und deswegen sind hier auch nur die besten Tierpfleger unterwegs, unter anderem Klaus Kühn. Passen Sie denn auf unseren Schatz Anori jetzt besonders auf?
Ja, natürlich. Besonders natürlich passen wir drauf auf. Aber wir haben so viele andere Tiere auch noch im Revier. Sie ist natürlich die niedlichste jetzt. Ein kleiner Eisbär ist was Schönes, hatten wir seit 16 Jahren nicht mehr. Deswegen freuen wir uns natürlich besonders auch darüber und wir passen drauf auf. Ja.
Und wie entwickelt sie sich? Ist ihr Gesundheitszustand gut?
Ihr Gesundheitszustand ist so, wie er sein soll. Sie entwickelt sich ganz normal. Sie wächst ganz normal. Sie frisst jetzt inzwischen auch überall rum mit. Sie macht der Mama alles nach. Hauptnahrung ist natürlich noch die Milch von der Mama. Aber sie knabbert überall rum. Sie spielt und tobt durchs Gehege und das ist wichtig. Und die Muskeln wachsen, sie wächst und das ist alles, was für uns wichtig ist.
Dankeschön. Wenn man der kleinen Anori beim Spielen zuschaut, will man natürlich, dass gar nichts passiert dem kleinen Eisbärbaby. Und das will der Zoo auch nicht, André Stadler. Denn es ist ja schon so, so ein Eisbärchen bringt dem Zoo auch was, oder?
Der bringt dem Zoo was, aber viel wichtiger, als dass wir einen persönlichen Vorteil davon haben, ist es, dass wir einen riesigen Schritt im Thema Artenschutz gemacht haben. Es gibt jetzt wieder einen Eisbär mehr auf dieser Welt und das ist das ganz, ganz Wichtige, weil das Thema globale Erwärmung, Bejagung der Tiere in Russland, das ist bei jedermann im Kopf und jetzt haben wir wieder einen Eisbär mehr auf der Welt und dann hat das Arche Noah-Prinzip wieder gegriffen und das ist der ganz große Erfolg.
Die Leute strömen jetzt aus ganz Deutschland und schauen sich Anori an. Wie muss sich da der Wuppertaler Zoo präsentieren?
Wir versuchen uns so zu präsentieren wie immer. Wir versuchen natürlich ein gutes Bild zu geben nach außen. Wir haben den Zoo aufgeräumt. Es sieht ordentlich bei uns aus. Hier gibt es keine Schmuddelecken. Und damit haben wir eigentlich schon geschafft. Es gab eigentlich nichts Spezielles. Wir haben jetzt hier so ein paar Absperrbändchen wie auf dem Flughafen gemacht, damit das Publikum leicht gelenkt wird. Aber sonst war das die einzigen Vorbereitungen, die wir gemacht haben.
Das große Manko ist derzeit der Zustand der Gastronomie im Zoo. Ob die Zoogaststätten wirklich offen haben oder nicht, weiß man im Moment nie so ganz genau, denn die Zukunft von Cafeteria, Kiosk und Co. ist bislang noch unklar. Hintergrund ist ein jahrelanger Streit zwischen der Stadt Wuppertal und dem Pächter der Zoogaststätten. Der Unternehmer soll nämlich keine leckeren Sachen angeboten haben und darüber beschweren sich schon seit Jahren Zoobesucher und auch das Personal. Deswegen hat die Stadt ihn zum Ende vergangenen Jahres gekündigt. Der Pächter will aber nicht raus und klagt weiter gegen die Kündigung. Das Landgericht Wuppertal hat der Stadt Recht gegeben. Jetzt muss das Oberlandesgericht Düsseldorf entscheiden. Martina Eckermann von der Stadt Wuppertal ist jetzt bei mir. Wie geht es denn jetzt endlich weiter mit den Zoogaststätten?
Wir suchen im Augenblick engagiert neue Betreiber. Wir können uns vorstellen, gastronomische Angebote punktuell zu vergeben oder auch in Gänze. Und da sind wir im Augenblick dabei und führen viele gute Gespräche.
Der Pächter hat jetzt aber noch mal Berufung eingelegt gegen das Urteil und möchte partout nicht raus. Werden Sie dann irgendwie räumen oder was haben Sie vor?
Das Kapitel mit dem alten Pächter ist aus Sicht der Stadt abgeschlossen. Das Urteil hat uns zu 100% bestätigt. Wir hoffen auf ein Einsehen, dass er die Räume in Kürze übergibt. Und ansonsten wären wir gezwungen, tatsächlich eine Räumung einzuleiten.
Durch Anori boomt der Zoo, bald ist auch Hochsaison im Sommer. Wo kriegen die Leute denn dann leckeres Essen her?
Ja, wir haben ja am vergangenen Wochenende schon sehr erfolgreich eine Übergangslösung mit kleinen punktuellen Angeboten getestet. Die Besucher haben es sehr gerne gemocht, wir hatten gute Resonanz und das wird ausgebaut, solange bis wir eine endgültige Lösung haben.
Die kleine Anori lässt der Streit um die Zoogaststätten völlig kalt, denn für ihr Fressen ist hier im Zoo natürlich immer gesorgt. André Stadler, Kurator des Zoos, was sind denn jetzt die nächsten Abenteuer, die auf Anori zukommen?
Ach, sie hat noch eine ganze Menge Abenteuer vor sich. Momentan ist sie ja noch auf der Mutter-Kind-Anlage. Wenn sie dann ein bisschen herangewachsen ist und die großen Stufen vor allem schafft, dann wird sie auch auf die große Anlage umziehen. Dann gibt es natürlich den großen Wasserpool, dann wird man viel schwimmen, einen neuen Ausblick genießen. Von da drüben kann man dann bis auf die Seelöwen zum Beispiel gucken, runter zu den Aras. Und da muss man vor allem heranwachsen. Irgendwann kriegt man sein richtiges Gebiss. Also Anori hat noch ganz schön viel auf der Agenda stehen.
Bleibt sie denn immer bei uns in Wuppertal?
Nein, nach ungefähr im Alter von 2 Jahren, ein bisschen jünger vielleicht, wird sie uns leider verlassen. Das ist dann so die Herzschmerzgeschichte. Aber da steht der Artehalt dann wieder über allem. Da wird sie dann umziehen, in einem anderen Zoo ankommen, mit einem netten, attraktiven Bärenmann zusammenkommen und hoffentlich viele kleine Baby-Anoris machen.
Bis dahin können Sie sich natürlich Anori im Wuppertaler Zoo noch angucken. Nur vielleicht sollten Sie sich Ihre Bütterchen selbst mitbringen.
Ja, danke schön, Gina. Und Gina hat heute übrigens auch echt tolle Bilder mitgebracht von Anori, wie sie einen riesen Knochen anknabbert, der quasi genauso groß ist wie Anori selbst. Diese Bilder, die zeigen wir Ihnen demnächst auch noch hier in der Lokalzeit.
An diese schwierige Entscheidung tastet sich Anori erstmal langsam heran. Schön bunt sieht das vegetarische Buffet ja schon aus und es schmeckt auch nicht schlecht. Aber dann. Kleiner Eisbär, großer Knochen. Für Anori kein Problem. Das hat sie ihren Fans bewiesen. Doch, dass man mit einem vollen Bauch nicht mehr ganz so gut laufen kann, das muss auch Anori erst noch lernen.
Süß. Und weil wir von der Kleinen einfach nicht genug bekommen können, hier noch ein paar Bilder. Wie gesagt, vorgestern haben wir Anori etwas länger besucht und deshalb beginnt auch unser Wochenrückblick mit ihr. Die anderen Themen der Woche, die kommen dann gleich hinterher. Viel Spaß.
Tja, mit Eisbärbaby Anori geht's auch nicht besser als sonst mit dem Nachwuchs. Die Kleine will sich einfach nicht waschen. Vom Zähneputzen ganz zu schweigen. Die Mama zeigt ihr zwar, wie arktisches Planschen geht, aber so richtig nass machen will sich das Eisbärküken nicht. Schlecht später auch fürs Fischefangen. Also, liebe Anori, schön auf Mama hören.
Ich möchte nicht mit dem erhobenen Zeigefinger drohen.
Die Begeisterung für die Luftschiffe in der Bevölkerung war groß, viel größer, als die Technik damals hergab. Und als genau vor 75 Jahren, am 6. Mai 1937, die Hindenburg explodierte, da ging die Zeppelin-Ära zu Ende. Die Begeisterung für Zeppeline ist aber geblieben, und zwar auch bei den Atmosphärenforschern. Bald schon soll Pegasos, das geflügelte Pferd, abheben.
Sie haben nicht mehr viel Zeit. Die Techniker und Wissenschaftler vom Forschungszentrum Jülich arbeiten auf Hochtouren. Sie bauen in Friedrichshafen einen Zeppelin für ihre Zwecke um. Sitzen muss in der Gondel keiner mehr. Die Stühle rauben nur Platz. Schwere und komplexe Messgeräte kommen stattdessen an Bord. Von der Luft aus werden die Geräte bald arbeiten. Im Flug sollen sie messen, welche Schadstoffe und Partikel sich in den untersten Luftschichten befinden. Denn was in Zeppelinhöhe passiert, ist bisher noch kaum erforscht. Ab Mitte Mai startet der Pegasos-Zeppelin zu seiner ersten Mission. Auf dem Flug Richtung Norden messen die Geräte in verschiedener Höhe Ozonwerte, Rußpartikel, Aerosole und Schadstoffkonzentrationen. Die Reise geht bis Rotterdam. Hier gibt es viel Industrie. Die rauchenden Schlote stoßen eine Menge Schadstoffe aus.
Die unteren Luftschichten, das heißt die ersten 1-2 Kilometer vom Erdboden aus gesehen, da gehen ja alle Emissionen rein, alle Industrieabgase. Und da passiert auch der größte Umsatz. Denn die Substanzen bleiben ja nicht unverändert in der Atmosphäre, sondern sie werden chemisch abgebaut. Und dieses passiert vornehmlich in diesen untersten Luftschichten.
Der Zeppelin kann Schwebeteilchen auf ihrem Weg nach oben begleiten, weil er senkrecht in die Luft steigen kann. Dazu ist ein Flugzeug nicht in der Lage und ein Hubschrauber würde die Luft verwirbeln. Nur mit einem Zeppelin sind solche Messungen möglich. Dafür wird unter der Gondel Luft angesaugt. Durch Schläuche gelangt sie dann in die Messinstrumente hinein. Einige Stoffe der Luft reagieren aber so schnell mit ihrer Umgebung, dass sie sich auf dem Weg durch einen Schlauch schon verändern würden. Deshalb wird auf dem Dach des Zeppelins auch noch dieser weiße Kasten befestigt. Hier wird die Luft, die auf die kleinen Kegel trifft, direkt von den darunterliegenden Messgeräten untersucht. Auf Hydroxylradikale. Diese Radikale verändern Schadstoffe in der Atmosphäre so, dass sie wasserlöslich werden. Erst so können sie mit herabfallendem Regen wieder aus der Luft ausgewaschen werden. Die Radikale sind quasi ein Reinigungsmittel für die Luft. Aber wie viele von den Radikalen vorkommen, das wissen die Forscher noch nicht. Umso gespannter sind die Wissenschaftler nun, ob sich ihre Präzisionsarbeit auch lohnen wird.
Was die größte Herausforderung sein wird, wirklich über die lange Zeit die Messungen durchzuführen, dass alles funktioniert. Die Geräte so stabil und so zuverlässig und so empfindlich zu machen, dass wir die Messungen in der nötigen Qualität auch erreichen werden.
Aber die Wissenschaftler sind zuversichtlich. Wenn der Zeppelin in 2 Wochen in die Luft geht, werden die Messergebnisse dazu beitragen, Prozesse in der Atmosphäre besser zu verstehen. Wichtig im Kampf gegen Luftverschmutzung und Klimawandel.
Of course, this is going to be the closest that the moon will be to the Earth all year long. It'll be the largest full moon, called the supermoon. It'll seem 14% larger, 30% brighter, even larger on the horizon, and it could take on a shade of red as it kind of goes through the dust in the atmosphere, but maybe some higher tides. So, Bella Luna.
Love it. Did not know that.
You're going to enjoy it today.
Thanks, Tom.
The tornado from the weekend, did you hear about this? This is a tornado. It was a series of storms. Let's just go ahead and clarify that. A series of storms that moved across the central part of Honshu, this eastern part of Honshu here, just north of Tokyo, a densely populated area. There's widespread damage across this region, and at least 1 tornado was spotted. We have new video to show you, and it's actually pretty dramatic and pretty scary. Look at this. And I don't speak Japanese, but you can hear the panic in people's voices here as they watch this huge funnel cloud that's on the ground, obviously, just kind of headed straight at them. You can see the tree line. You can see how high those trees are. They appear to be pine trees from at least some of them from this angle. And then you begin to see the debris flying around. You hear the noise the storm is making. Of course, the screams of panic. And then if you look closely, you'll see all that debris flying around, some of it fairly close to where these people are. This is an extremely dangerous situation. And then, look at that. Those sparks that you see there, those are transformers blowing up just behind the tree line. The trees getting shredded as the storm just whips right through that entire region. Now, if you're ever in the situation, do not stand there and take pictures. You really need to take cover immediately. That man on a balcony, did you see them there on the left-hand side? This is extremely dangerous because you don't know which way the storm is coming. It's hard to tell how far away it is sometimes. And any piece of debris could just come and fly right into you and hurt you very badly, even if the storm is farther away. So very, very scary indeed. And there's one more video I want to show you before I run out of time, because this is the damage on the ground, Christy. At least one person was killed, but authorities are concerned that we could see that toll rising because there are still some people that may be unaccounted for. Like I said, this is a densely populated area where you can see how widespread the damage is. This is cars that are turned over, and there you see it, a lot of damage to buildings and to infrastructure in that area. Come back over to the weather map. We're not expecting any kind of severe weather through here, which is definitely good news. Still a Oh, look at this, Christy, the supermoon. This is a picture from our iReporters around the globe. And I'm going to go ahead and tweet this link in just a little while so you can see some more of them. The supermoon, of course, the full moon during the perigee, which is when the moon is closest to the Earth. It happens about once a year. And every year, spectacular. If you were lucky enough to witness it, well, you know what? You got to see it. I don't know if you guys have any more pictures of the supermoon. We're absolutely loving them. Everyone's talking about it still because it was so phenomenal. You could see it best when it was close to the horizon, but it was pretty spectacular as it moved up. And we know what? We have the full moon for an entire week, Christy, so there's still opportunities. It might not be super, but still looks pretty good. Back to you.
It looks fabulous. Our iReporters did that. Just great images. Please tweet it out. I want to share it to my audience as well. Myra Ramos there. Thank you.
Good morning from NASA's Johnson Space Center. This is Mission Control Houston. It's Monday, May 7th, 2012. A team of flight controllers is on console here in Mission Control watching over all of the systems aboard the International Space Station, with the team having been on consoles now for a couple of hours, working on about a 9-hour shift or so. The flight controllers watch over all of the systems aboard the International Space Station. They are under direction today of Flight Director Ed Van Cise. You see him seated there in the middle. He's joined by Hal Getzelman, who is handling the voice link or the communications link between this flight control team and the crew aboard the International Space Station, Expedition 31. You see their logo right there next to the Mission Operations logo on the side of the Flight Director console. The Expedition 31 crew, a 3-member crew aboard the International Space Station right now. In the center of the picture is Expedition 31 Commander Oleg Kononenko. He is on his second flight into space. He served as a crew member of Expedition 17. On the right in this view is European Space Agency astronaut André Kuipers from the Netherlands. He is on his second flight. He served on a rotation back in the early days of the space station assembly. Also joining the crew on the far left is astronaut Don Pettit. He is a U.S. astronaut serving on his third flight into space. He was on Expedition 6 in the early days of construction as well, and he also served as a crew member mission specialist on shuttle flight STS-126. These three gentlemen are on their 137th day aboard the International Space Station. They've been in space now for 139 days. That's a little more than a month and a half, 4 months and a half for the crew, as they plan to stay aboard the station until early July, when they'll return home aboard their Soyuz TMA-03M spacecraft. The three crew members that are headed to the space station are in Baikonur in Kazakhstan, as they prepare for their launch scheduled for the evening of May 14th, U.S. Central Time. The crew members are Gennady Padalka. You see him in the middle in this view, Sergei Revin on the left, and U.S. astronaut Joe Akaba on the right. Those three crew members will launch at 10 p.m. on Monday, May 14th, for a 2-day flight to the International Space Station to join the Expedition 31 crew. The crew spent a quiet weekend on board the station. They conducted some experiment checks and had quite a bit of off-duty time. They also were able to talk with their families on board and conduct some weekly housekeeping chores. On Sunday, they continued with their weekly status checks of some experiments ongoing aboard the station. And today, the crew focuses on experiment work, pre-packaging of items that will be returned aboard the Dragon spacecraft, and also gathering some water samples aboard the station for later analysis. Tomorrow, the crew members will conduct an onboard training exercise, which is periodically done aboard the station. This will be an emergency depressurization, a simulation, if you will, for the crew on board. And then the rest of the week, the crew schedule is being replanned somewhat, since the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch has moved out to the May 19th date. And so ground controllers are reviewing additional utilization and science tasks for the crew in and around the already planned activities on board the International Space Station.
Die Wärme wird ein bisschen nach Osten abgedrängt, zur Ukraine hin, sonst über Polen schon ein bisschen kühler und natürlich weiterhin in Großbritannien und in Irland 10, 15 Grad. Schon seit Wochen wird es dort nicht wärmer. Am Mittelmeer sind es um die 25, auch jetzt hier in Spanien, im Süden zumindest. Es hat aufgehört zu regnen, nur noch im Norden zieht Regen durch und dann kann es natürlich wärmer werden. Und jetzt fliegen wir einfach mal ein bisschen um die Erde, und zwar von Europa Richtung Asien, Sibirien. Der Baikalsee liegt dort. Ja, so langsam taut's auf. Größer ist das Satellitenbild heute nicht, dieser Ausschnitt, aber Sie sehen, der See hier im Norden ist zugefroren und es liegt auch noch Schnee in den Bergen. Das Interessante sind die Temperaturen. Hier im Süden, südlich des Sees, bis zu 30 Grad, um den See tagsüber um die 20, und nachts geht es natürlich runter. Es ist ja noch ein bisschen Eis dort auch, auf 0 bis 5 Grad. Das war's. Ich wünsche Ihnen einen schönen Abend und machen Sie es gut.
Deep end. Now more birds have been found dead on the beaches of Peru. Why? Well, I'll tell you what experts are saying right after the news.
Our meteorologist Mari Ramos is at the Weather Center. Mari?
Yeah, this is a story that's been going on for a while. The first batch of birds was actually found way back in February, and it was a relatively small amount. Now they're saying, you know what, this has happened again. This is according to El Comercio, one of the country's newspapers. I'm going to go ahead and first of all show you the area that we're talking about. Most of these findings have been happening north of Lima, right here along the coast, all the way up to the desert area. So starting from pretty much this area called San Jose, all the way up, we went ahead and marked it for you. So it's a very large area where they have found, by some estimates, over 1,000 dead birds and over 800 dead dolphins that have washed up on the beaches. There's a lot of different causes that they're looking at, including the possibility that acoustic waves that they use for sonar, for example, or for oil exploration may have had something to do with it. Was there something in the food supply that maybe was contaminated and made the birds sick? And the last one is changes in sea surface temperature. Why is this important? Because the changes in sea surface temperature affect the food supply as well. I want to show you some pictures, and they're kind of hard to watch sometimes because these poor animals, you can see them, they showed up either dead or dying along the beaches of Peru. Now, some of the things that they're saying along these areas is that, you know what, these birds are relatively young. They're coming, and they're falling down, and then they don't get back up and eventually die. It's a pretty sad story. If you come back over here to the weather map, let me go ahead and show you something else. One of the things that we were looking at when this story first popped up is the sea surface temperature. And the reason this is important is because this is a very sensitive ecosystem. The water, it's a cold current. It's called a Humboldt current. And that current comes out of the south, and it helps kind of stir up the ocean a little bit. So there's an ample food supply for all of these animals. In this case, we've had a rise in sea surface temperature here just off the coast of Peru. Over the last month or so, it has been quite significant. And that could have made all of their food supply, particularly the anchovies, leave that area, and the birds have nothing to eat, and maybe the dolphins have nothing to eat. So that's just one of the theories that could have happened, or why this mystery has happened in this area. They're still, of course, investigating. Mystery of the dead birds and the dead dolphins across parts of, off the coast of Peru. This is very significant. We have some pictures to show you, first of all, of that region. And you can see a lot of the animals still here. This is in Chiclayo, and there's usually thousands of these birds there. There's still a few that are flying around, as you can see, but on the bottom, there's a lot of, on the coast, I should say, there have been a lot of dead birds. Some of them will fly in here, and they never leave because in some cases, they appear to be starving. Come back over to the weather map. Let me show you the areas that we're talking about. It's off of this north coast of Peru. And there's a lot of theories as to why this is happening. In one occasion, they counted over 1,200 dead pelicans along the coast here of the north coast of Peru. El Comercio, one of the newspapers in Peru, reported another sighting of dead birds farther to the south. So this is getting a bit more widespread. The causes could be, you know, anybody's guess at this point. A lot of that could have to do with the food supply that's affecting the birds. Some of these animals, authorities in Peru are saying, appear to have starved to death, so which is very significant. And that made us look at the water, which is where their food source comes from. Now, what you're looking here is at the water temperature. This is the area of Peru in question, and it's pretty significant because the sea surface temperature is showing us some pretty significant changes. This is back in March, and I want you to see the difference that happens within a month. Take a look at this. There you go. And this is significant. So you're looking at 3 to 4 degrees changes in the water temperature within 1 month. This could be one of the reasons these birds or these dolphins may not have enough to eat. This is a very sensitive ecosystem, very cold current. The Humboldt current comes through here. And if they don't have enough to eat, they're going to starve en masse, as we've seen across some of these areas. And this is one of the theories, and I think something that they're going to be looking at very, very closely as they continue to follow the mystery of the thousands of pelicans that have perished in this area. Back to you.
Incredible. So a 3-degree temperature difference could be the culprit. Mari Ramos there, thank you very much indeed for that. And we are also trying to figure out the answer to this question. Killed the dinosaurs. Now, some say the Ice Age, others blame a rogue asteroid, but a new theory put forth by British scientists in the journal called Current Biology says the dinosaurs did themselves in. Now, most dinosaurs, they were herbivores, especially the larger ones. That means, like modern-day cows, their digestive systems emitted methane gas, and a lot of it. Enough, perhaps, to significantly affect the climate, making it too hot for the cold-blooded creatures to survive. Well, that's the new theory, at least.
Tja, und diese Nachricht hat heute in Berlin für viel Aufregung und Ärger gesorgt. Der neue hochmoderne Hauptstadtflughafen in Schönefeld kann nicht wie geplant am 3. Juni zum Ferienreiseverkehr eingeweiht werden, sondern erst Monate später. Der Grund? Der neue Airport erfüllt im Moment noch nicht die Brandschutzauflagen. Es ist nicht die erste Panne auf Europas größter Flughafenbaustelle, über die sich die Landeschefs von Berlin und Brandenburg ärgern. Nina Lammers berichtet.
Wir erwarten, dass so schnell wie möglich der Flughafen eröffnet wird.
Ich verhehle auch nicht, dass ich stocksauer bin.
Ich kann mich nur entschuldigen für die Situation, die eingetreten ist.
Zerknirschung und Wut bei den Verantwortlichen heute auf der Pressekonferenz. Zwar lief der Testbetrieb vor einigen Monaten ohne größere Probleme, doch jetzt scheitert die geplante Eröffnung des Flughafens Berlin-Brandenburg am Brandschutz. Zwar sind alle Anlagen installiert, doch die Software funktioniert nicht.
Es geht letztlich um eine Sicherheitsanlage. Es geht um die Brandschutzanlage und die kann nicht nur ein bisschen funktionieren, sondern die muss 100%ig funktionieren.
Weil Sicherheitsschleusen fehlten, wurde die Eröffnung schon einmal um 7 Monate verschoben. Jetzt soll der Willy-Brandt-Flughafen, das Prestigeobjekt der Region Berlin-Brandenburg, erst im August den Betrieb aufnehmen. Die große Eröffnungsfeier mit 10.000 geladenen Gästen inklusive der Kanzlerin wird abgesagt, der schon begonnene Umzug vorläufig gestoppt. Monatlich 15 Millionen Euro kostet die Verzögerung.
Ich kann das nicht mehr nachvollziehen. Offenbar sind da nicht die fähigsten Kräfte am Werk.
Tausende wollten von hier aus in den Sommerurlaub starten. Ihre Tickets gelten nun für die beiden alten Flughäfen Tegel und Schönefeld. Wo der Flieger dann genau startet, darüber wollen die Airlines die Passagiere rechtzeitig informieren. Die Fluglinien stehen vor einer logistischen Herausforderung, weil sie den Sommerurlaubsverkehr nicht über den neuen Flughafen abwickeln können. Denn der sollte pro Monat 250.000 Passagiere mehr abfertigen als Schönefeld und Tegel zusammen.
Ziemlich düster, wenn man die Prognosen liest, die renommierte Forscher des weltbekannten Club of Rome jetzt in ihrem neuesten Bericht zur Zukunft unseres Planeten zusammengefasst haben. Im Jahr 2052, zumindest unsere Kinder werden das noch erleben, sehen die Wissenschaftler den Klimawandel als gewaltiges Problem. Das Eis der Arktis wird schmelzen, der Meeresspiegel ansteigen und ganze Landstriche versinken. Ebenso düster die wirtschaftliche Entwicklung. Der Finanzkapitalismus wird nach Meinung der Forscher dafür sorgen, dass die Armut in den westlichen Industriestaaten deutlich zunimmt. Das wiederum soll zur Folge haben, dass die Jugend revoltiert. Schon in den kommenden Jahrzehnten werde den jungen Menschen der Geduldsfaden reißen, weil sie unter anderem nicht länger die Umweltsünden der Alten tragen wollen. Friede Gutmann über das Zukunftsszenario.
Wenn der Club of Rome seine Zukunftsvisionen präsentiert, dann horcht die Welt auf. Denn mit ihren Prophezeiungen lagen die Wissenschaftler bisher fast immer richtig. Die große Frage war schon beim ersten Report 1972, wird die Welt das aushalten oder kollabieren? Und die Frage ist heute drängender denn je. Denn Anfang der 40er Jahre werden 8,1 Milliarden Menschen auf unserem Planeten leben, erst danach werden es wieder weniger. Sie alle wollen mobil sein, verbrauchen Energie und verpesten die Luft. Zeit zum Umdenken.
Solange wir 5- oder 10-mal so viel CO2 pro Kopf erzeugen wie diese Länder und das zum Leitbild, zum Entwicklungsleitbild wird, dann sind wir letztlich natürlich die Brandstifter.
2030 erreichen die Treibhausgase ihren Höhepunkt. Dann ist es bereits zu spät, um den Klimawandel noch zu stoppen. Die Erde heizt mehr und mehr auf, wie diese Animation zeigt. Die Folge: verheerende Dürren, Überschwemmungen, Wirbelstürme. Schuld an dem Klimawandel sei die unersättliche Wirtschaft, die einzig auf Wachstum getrimmt ist. Ausgerechnet der Finanzkapitalismus, der den Westen reich gemacht hat, wird sein Verhängnis sein. Armut und soziale Ungleichheit werden in den Industriestaaten zunehmen und das treibt die Jugend auf die Barrikaden, wie zuletzt in Spanien und Großbritannien.
Da werden wir vermutlich so eine Art der Revolution erleben, dass uns unsere Enkelinnen und Enkel fragen werden: Hey Opa, das kann doch nicht sein. Ihr damals 2 Autos vor der Tür, diese Verschwendung, der ganze Müll, so ein Lebensstil, wo ihr kaum noch wirklich ein besseres Leben von hattet, Konsum des Konsumwegens. Was wart ihr krank?
Deshalb werde sich die Jugend von der Kultur des Konsums verabschieden. Dann habe der Planet doch noch eine Chance, dem Kollaps zu entgehen.
Der US-Geheimdienst CIA hat Mitte April offenbar ein vom Terrornetzwerk Al-Qaida geplantes Attentat vereitelt. Ein Selbstmordattentäter wollte sich, wie es jetzt bekannt wurde, mit einer Bombe an Bord einer Passagiermaschine schmuggeln. Doch der Sprengstoff wurde im Vorfeld sichergestellt. Es ist ein explosives Gemisch, das auch von modernen Sicherheitsschleusen nicht erkannt werden kann. Kurt Eickhoff berichtet.
Jemenitische Al-Qaida-Mitglieder sollen versucht haben, eine solche Unterhosenbombe an Bord eines Passagierflugzeugs zu schmuggeln. Eine Weiterentwicklung der 80 Gramm PETN-Bombe, mit der ein Islamist vor 2,5 Jahren ein Flugzeug über der US-Stadt Detroit abstürzen lassen wollte, dabei aber überwältigt und verhaftet wurde. Der Anschlag zeigt, dass diese Terroristen versuchen, immer perversere und schrecklichere Methoden zu entwickeln, um unschuldige Menschen zu ermorden. Diese Aufnahmen, ein Test der US-Regierung, zeigen die Explosion von nur 50 Gramm des Sprengstoffes PETN, eine deutlich geringere Menge im Vergleich zur Unterhosenbombe. Eine solche Explosion während eines Fluges wäre verheerend. PETN wird in Verbindung mit anderen Substanzen als Plastiksprengstoff und als Ladung für Handgranaten eingesetzt. US-Behörden vermuten den Al-Qaida-Bombenbastler Ibrahim al-Aziri als Hintermann des vereitelten Anschlags. Die komplexen Fachkenntnisse hat sich der Saudi extra in einem Chemiestudium aneignet. Der Vorfall macht deutlich, dass wir weiterhin wachsam bleiben müssen für solche, die versuchen, unser Land zu attackieren. Wir werden alles Nötige dafür tun, dass Amerika sicher bleibt. Da der aktuelle Sprengsatz kein Metall enthalten haben soll, wäre er auch bei Kontrollen an Flughäfen schwer aufspürbar gewesen. Dennoch hat die Bundespolizei bislang noch keine verschärften Sicherheitsvorkehrungen an deutschen Flughäfen angekündigt.
Good morning from NASA's Johnson Space Center. This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking at the International Space Station Flight Control Room from the front corner of the room, looking across the top of the consoles, staffed by a team of flight controllers watching over all of the systems aboard the International Space Station. The team today is led by Flight Director Ron Spencer, who is watching over the team throughout the daytime hours, which is the second half of the crew's day. He's joined by Hal Getzelman, who is serving as the spacecraft communicator, the link between this team and the crew on board the International Space Station. The orbiting complex is approaching the southwestern United States from the southwest, having just moved into an orbital sunrise, just about to move across the Baja Peninsula, and then across the central portions of the U.S., the Great Lakes region, and then out across northeastern Canada, before making a swing across the North Atlantic. The next coastal crossing will be the coast of Spain and Europe. The crew on board enjoying their 140th day in space, 138 of those aboard the International Space Station. From left to right, Don Pettit, U.S. astronaut, serving as a flight engineer. In the middle is the commander of Expedition 31, Oleg Kononenko. He is also the commander of the Soyuz TMA-03M spacecraft, in which the three crew members arrived at this station back on December 23rd of 2011. And on the right is, from the Netherlands, is André Kuipers, representing the European Space Agency. All three gentlemen have flown in space previously. This will be their longest duration space flight. When they complete their mission, they will have spent about 193 days in space. Today, the crew focused on experiment work and completed an onboard training exercise in how they would respond in the event of an emergency depressurization of the station. The crew also continued preparations for the arrival of 2 visiting vehicles, a Soyuz next week transporting 3 more colleagues, and the following week a new commercial cargo vehicle named Dragon. Pettit spent time loading software in one of the experiment racks for the Altia experiment, designed to measure the effects of the exposure of crew members to cosmic radiation. It's designed to improve the understanding of the impacts that radiation has on the human central nervous system functions, and will study the flashes from cosmic radiation that astronauts have reported since back in the Apollo days. Altia will also provide an assessment of the radiation environment in the International Space Station's cabin. Pettit also worked with Payload Operations Control Center in Huntsville, Alabama, to begin troubleshooting a synchronization issue between a reference clock and an atomic clock associated with the Spheres experiment, designed to test a set of well-defined instructions for spacecraft that are performing autonomous rendezvous and docking maneuvers. Along with Kuipers, Pettit discussed the mission of Expedition 31 and life in space with the World Wildlife Fund. The annual global conference is ongoing as we speak in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. The WWF is one of the world's leading conservation organizations, and it's working with more than 100 countries around the world. With Kononenko, the crew also focuses on safety, and today conducted that onboard training exercise with Mission Control on procedures and how to respond in the event of a rapid depressurization of the station's cabin atmosphere. The exercise concluded with a debrief that was followed by the crew's lunch a little bit earlier this morning. Anticipating the arrival of 3 more station crew members, the Expedition 31 crew continued preparing for the Soyuz TMA-04M launch scheduled for May 14th, with arrival at the station on the 16th. Their arrival will restore the station's crew complement to 6. The SpaceX Dragon spacecraft is scheduled to launch May 19th, and it will be delivering some supplies to the International Space Station, and the crew is continuing to do some pre-pack exercises, items that will be returning home on that newest cargo vehicle, the first commercial spacecraft to visit the International Space Station.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, we are ready for the event.
ESA, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Alex Stapel from WWF. How do you hear me?
Well, we hear you loud and clear. How do you hear us?
We hear you loud and clear too. Andre, Don, and Alex, who is not here, but he's on the spaceship. Welcome to the spaceship Rotterdam here in the Netherlands. We are here gathered with the annual conference 2012 from WWF. Guys, let's hear an applause. Right. Andre, last time we met, you had your feet firmly on the ground, and we were at the 2012 or 2011 dinner for the 50 years birthday of WWF International in Switzerland, and we had quite a chat, and we talked about all this, and now it's happening, so we are really enthusiastic that you're here. We're discussing here the economy of the future, which is a very big topic, and you know we're talking about it a lot, but we are here at Earth, and actually we thought that there would be no better persons than you two to give us a global perspective, because you're the only 2 to 3 people who really have a global perspective at this moment. So I'd asked 5 colleagues from us here in the audience to ask you some questions. I will introduce them, and they ask their question, and I hope you have a great response. Shall we begin?
Excellent. It's good to hear you, and we look forward to the questions.
Okay, let me start with Alexander Shestakov, or Sasha. He is our Arctic NI leader, and he has the first question. To you, Andre.
Andrei, добрый день. First, I'd just like to send best regards from a great supporter of WWF work in Russia, Sergei Krikalev, your colleague. So as a question, I like to ask you as a professional space traveler, what do you think that the space expeditions can do to support research and understanding of consequences of climate change? And specifically, of course, I'm interested for the Arctic.
Yes, that's an interesting question. For us, it's we see the Earth in one moment, so it's hard to see differences in climate change, which is taking place over a longer period. But of course, we have a lot of good satellites, and these satellites are specialized for Earth observation. For example, the polar regions, which we can hardly see from our orbit, but with for example, ESA satellites like Cryosat, we have a fantastic means to really, for example, measure the thickness of the ice and observe the changes that are taking place. So we compare these data with scientists who take measurements on the ground, and this way we can really analyze and predict also how the ice layer, for example, is changing. So this is something that people have to realize, that Earth observation is a very big part of space flight. Everybody looks, of course, at the International Space Station and the great work we do up here, but with satellites we have a really good means to see changes on the planet over time.
Thank you. The second question will be given to you by Dr. Efrani Francia from Indonesia.
Hi, Andre. You visited my place. You were in Borneo, part of Borneo, and we thank you, grateful for the ESA donation to the heart of Borneo. My question is, when you fly over, again, Borneo or Himalaya or Amazon, can you observe any difference? You notice something, please?
Yeah, well, one of the beautiful things on the planet is, of course, the tropical regions. But a side effect is, unfortunately, that there's a lot of clouds. So you really can fly over Borneo or the Amazon several times, and the only thing you see is clouds. It's a rainforest, that's why. But now and then we really have a good view, and then you can indeed see deforestation taking place. You see the parts in the rainforest that are being cut on side rivers. So that's something that you can observe. You can see forest fires, the plumes you can see from the fire from the fires. What you can also see is the effect of deforestation. For example, if there's erosion, you can see a lot of earth floating out of the big rivers into the ocean. Of course, like I said before, it's hard to compare the differences between my first flight and now, which is in 2008. It was in 2004 and now. So therefore we have great satellites, but there are clear signs of things happening on our planet down there.
And I hope that our rainforests do not come to the end of their reign.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. The third question will be posed by Mr. Ravi Singh from India.
Hello, Andre. It's an honor to speak to you. Do you notice from where you are any changes relating to the Earth as a result of urbanization or desertification? Do you see, for instance, ever any algae blooms in the ocean that would damage or would have a negative effect on our ecosystems?
Well, one of the things that is very interesting to see from space is the Earth at night. Because it's an amazing amount of lights and cities, so urbanization is really huge. And so at that moment you can really see that there's not so many places with fertile soil, for example, where people can go. There's a lot of desert, a lot of saltwater, ocean, mountains, and for the rest, there's a lot of urbanization. And in daytime, you can see, for example, the pollution there. You can see the haze layers over big cities. So there's a clear indications of the effects of humans on the planet and the ongoing urbanization. And now, concerning the algae, the blooms, I have to have a better look at that. I see beautiful colors in the oceans. And so that's something to look out for in the coming months that I'm still here. I'll try to spot those. And my colleague has been in space as well before, also for half a year, and he has a good comparison, a better comparison, but concerning the urbanization.
One thing that I've noticed, particularly in South America, is the spread of city lights at night. 9 years ago when I was on space station and I would take pictures of Earth nighttime lights, South America was pretty dark, and now there's been a lot of growth in the South American region over the last 9 years.
Great, thanks. The next question actually is to you, Don, so you can hand back the mic to Don. It comes from Carter Roberts from the U.S.
First of all, it's great to see you guys. It's yet another evidence of how bald men have an oversized influence in the universe. Don, my question for you is... My question for you is, you guys are heroes to our kids. My kids love astronauts. How do you see your work inspiring the next generation to take care of our planet?
I believe that each generation finds its own inspirations, and they pick and choose from all the old fogies that were there before them. And so I will leave the next generation to review the work that we're doing in space today, pick and choose what they find inspiring, and build upon that and move off into space in the way that they choose.
Okay, thanks, Don. Then we go to one of our final questions, and that comes from our host in the Netherlands, and that is Johan van der Fronde.
Hi, Don. Hi, Andre. What a privilege to communicate with you on our anniversary session here at our annual conference. Andre, my question to you would be, this conference has a theme. It's on the economy of the future, greening the economy, reversing the trend. What would be your biggest idea from space, how to bring about a sustainable green economy on planet Earth?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, next week on May 15th, the Living Planet report comes out. You've already seen a draft of that. And as you know, that's an indicator of the state of the health of our planet. And you're all together now in one room for a big brainstorming session, and to think what you can do all together as conservationists, as protectionists of the Earth. You are protecting the planet, but WWF has to put in the effort to combine efforts and strengths of other entities, because you have to think out of the box beyond what the WWF is doing in its network, because we are all responsible and we all play a role in finding solutions for protecting our beautiful planet. So that means involving businesses and persuade governments. So we really have to act now before, well, it will be soon too late if we don't do a great effort. Now in June 2012, so coming soon, a lot of nations, but also businesses, civil society representatives, they all come together on the UN Conference on Sustainable Development. So this is 20 years after the momentous Earth Summit. Crucial opportunity, because there we take stock on where the world is heading and how we like our future to take shape. We all have the ability to save our home, to protect our planet, not only for us, and not only because it's good to protect it for present time, but it's also for the future generations. We have solutions, and everybody can contribute to that. So it's making better choices for how to govern places, how to produce, how to consume. All these things are needed. We have to take care of our planet, and it's in our hands. And I wish you all the best with brainstorming on this difficult but very important mission.
Thanks, Andre. Andre, we still have some time for an extra question, so I'd like to give the floor once more to Sasha. He has another question for you both.
Andrea, Don, thanks a lot for your views, and I especially enjoy Flying Panda. So we know that your mission has been extended. Are you starting to miss Earth?
Well, you have a bit of a look here in the station, and it's very technical. It's all machines, it's all metal, and what I miss very much is nature. It sounds like a cliche, but if you're every half a year, it would be so nice to walk in the rain or get some nice sunshine, hear the birds, etc. So that's something I miss, and I look forward to feel and sense nature again. But if somebody would tell me you have to stay another half year, I wouldn't mind either, because the planet is fantastic to look at, and I can do that for a while more.
Thanks, Andre. We have one more question from Carter.
Thanks, Andre. Some of us love to sail on the ocean. And I hear tell that you've got a very cool new boat tracking system on board the ISS, a vessel ID system. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's a very interesting experiment where we exchange data with ships all over the world. It's an automatic system, and this is a very interesting. It's a test bed to see how we can use the station to do this kind of tracking. And so for economy, but for tracking all these ships, this is a very nice system. And who knows what other applications we could make out of that. So this is indeed a very nice one.
Okay, one last question. This is for Don. Don, after 4 months in space, how good are you at identifying a spot on planet Earth just by looking at it?
You're going to have to repeat that. You were stepped on by other comm on station. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Don, you've been in space for 4 months now. How good are you at looking at a spot on planet Earth and identifying?
You get good about looking out the window and telling what part of the world you are in. If you look out, you see red dirt, you're either over Australia or you're over Africa. If you look out at night and you see a host of little tiny lights dispersed out in a fog, you know you're over India. And if you see blue-green city lights, you know you're over Japan. So there are certain characteristics of Earth that show up either at night or daytime that you get used to, and you just glance out the window and you go, oh yeah, we're over Africa.
And station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank y'all.
Thank you, European Space Agency. Station, we are now resuming operational video and audio communications.